Check, 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 check. Evening, y'all.
Hey, Ty. Hey, can you pin that that tiny URL that I just had data make for the podcast? Because we couldn't remember what the other one was.
Can y'all not pin?
I don't think so.
Okay. It is
Maybe I'm
pinned.
just dumb. Yeah, maybe I'm just dumb and don't know how to do that. So that's possible.
Yeah, so that way we can, just be like, hey,
I got
granted the Twitter invite is permanently on our Twitter handle, so.
Yep. Not everybody uses Twitter though. Is the problem. So.
Yeah.
Not everybody uses the Twitter.
So, well, that's the thing. Not everybody uses Twitter. Not everybody uses Discord. So we throw everything up so that we'll catch as many people as possible.
Shotgun.
So what you're saying is not everyone's a twat.
Yes. I just recently came back to Twitter. Actually, I've had a Twitter account for years, but if you look, I think you've seen that I maybe tweeted one or two things like the day I got the account years ago and then never opened it again.
Yeah, my Twitter's only active during football season, so.
Yeah. Respect.
That's been the only place you can get news if you want to get news. So.
Yeah, if you don't live in the city that your team's in or anything.
Yep. Alright.
I follow this one Twitter account that's like wiki titles that you can say to the tune of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Nice. Don't forget, Ty, you need to edit tweets for the episode.
Yep, I got it.
Okay.
I'm getting my ship ready right now, so I'm gonna have to make a trip. Oh, that's not bad. It's only 9 jumps.
What are you flying tonight?
420. You going to that Anaconda house?
I wish. No, I gotta go out to our location of the week for
Okay, yeah.
whatever the hell it's called. Yeah.
Story time with old man.
Yeah,
Tom.
thank you. Brain fart.
You're very welcome. Wow, and
Oh,
stop
shit.
calling me brain fart in front of company. I feel demeaned.
You know what I didn't do? I didn't mute all this. I think we're live now. Okay. Hello, guys. It is January 16th, 2020. I am Ty Worsham, and this is Loose Screws. As you guys have probably noticed, I'm still trying to get the hang of this live streaming thing, so bear with me just a little bit. This is episode 20 of Loose Screws. And 6 months ago is when we started this. And it all kind of started off with something very small. And I never really thought it would get anywhere. But it has kind of grown into this thing that's pretty damn amazing. And that's kind of what I was wanting to say real quick, is that as we do episode 20 tonight, and we got a big old beefy burrito size episode for you guys, like a big burrito, not like a small burrito. I'm really proud of what this has become, and I wanted to say this during our live stream at Christmas, but I got distracted, and I want to say it last week. But I am so thankful for everybody that listens to this show and listens to me and the guys just talk about this game that we love. And the people at FDev that's joined us, Paige, and now Steve Benedetti. Thank you guys. Lave Radio, thank you for supporting us for all this time. And I just want to say thank you guys. And this is awesome. And now Old Man Ty will stop talking. So with me tonight, I have my usual co-pilot, Dravenos. How's it going tonight, bud?
Doing well, sir. How about yourself?
Oh, pretty good. My other co-pilot, which we're going to figure out a cool title for you, by the way, is good old Commander Kai Zen. How's it going tonight, man?
Man, I'm flying spaceships. It couldn't be any better.
Hell yeah. So, one thing I do want to talk about before we get started about everything else is we have someone else in the chat with us tonight, and that is Tweaked74 with a, I guess that's a Chinese symbol. Is that? And I will go with Asian symbol. I don't want to offend nobody.
Yeah, it is. That's actually just a signal that I'm in another group in my squadron that I'm in, the Leviathan Scout.
Oh.
Leviathan Scout. And that basically means I'm in a group called Yari, which is a PvP group. So that's all that means.
I got you. Okay. Well, we have Tweaked on here tonight because he is a captain in the Leviathan Scout Regiment. I believe you're LNF 2. I assume that's Leviathan Naval Fleet 2?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. And you play on the Xbox, and
Yep.
I get a fair amount of questions about the BGS that I do not understand, because I understand very little about the BGS. So I'm bringing you in tonight to give us a BGS 101, the background simulation. But we'll come to that in just a second. Because what I was wanting to focus on first was that Stephen Benedetti has joined our Discord, and now we have 2 FDev people in here, and that is really awesome. We got Paige and we got Steven, and that is really awesome. And a large reason why that's been happening is because Kai's been doing some stuff in the background, and our show is really growing. And Steve, Paige, thank you guys very much for joining us. I don't know if you guys are going to listen to the show, but if y'all do, thank you guys. Let's go ahead and let's do our normal shout outs from the Twitter, Dravenos, please, sir.
All right. This week, following us over at the Loose Screws ED Twitter, we have Purple Marauder, Anna Barrick Eve, and Indiana Cuffer. Thank you guys so much for following us and continuing to grow this wonderful community that we have.
Cool. So, not a whole lot of news this week, but at the same time, there was a fair amount of news this week. To begin with, we had a patch drop this week, or dropped on Tuesday, I believe. This was the great big January patch where it's a big bunch of not patch fix, a big bunch of bug fixes that they released. And we kind of went over all the notes from last week of everything that was changing. And we will there's a few things that were different that we're going to go into in a minute. But I do want to point out that when they released this patch, they also introduced a stuttering issue. And on Wednesday, to FDev's credit, they released a patch on PC to fix the issue. Now, the way I understand it, and Tweak, you can probably answer this. The way I understand it, that patch has not hit the consoles yet. That's supposed to be next week, right?
That's correct. It has not hit. From what I'm hearing, it's going to be somewhere around Monday or Tuesday that patch hits on Xbox.
Yeah, the way I understand the reason that is because there's a process that they have to have Microsoft go through and check the patch, or they have to approve the patch or something, and they have to wait for them to do that. So,
yep.
How bad is it over there? How bad is the performance?
Some people are complaining of the stuttering. I myself haven't experienced that. What I have experienced is the conflict zones are totally broken. You start a conflict zone and basically the progress bar disappears and it turns into a never-ending battle. You run out of ammo before, there's never a win or a loss or anything like that, which in turn kind of counts as a loss for the BGS, but that needs to get fixed. Hopefully with the next patch. So
yeah,
it's funny that they released a patch to fix CZs that broke the CZs even worse.
So I'm gonna go ahead and dive into the BGS, unless you guys have something else that we wanna bring up real quick before we get into the great big BGS discussion. Cool.
No, I'm excited for this.
I am too, and the reason why is because I have a lot of questions. It's more like I don't even know what to even ask on some of this stuff. So, Tweaked, what is the BGS and how the hell does it work?
Well, the BGS is, first, BGS stands for the background simulation. And in my opinion, it is the lifeblood of Elite Dangerous. Everything you do in this game, with the exception of maybe PvP, anything else you do affects the BGS. How much it affects it and who affects it is what the real question is, but it doesn't matter. You are an explorer. When you come back and you sell your data, that affects somebody's BGS. If you're a miner, you go and you sell your void opals or your pay night, that affects somebody's BGS. You're doing missions from the mission board, that's affecting it. And when I say affecting it, in each star system, there is a maximum of 7, sometimes you get 8 in rare instances with invasions and whatnot. 7 different factions with 100% influence in that system divvied up between those factions. And if you take missions for faction X and you go complete those missions successfully, that raises their influence. And that can turn into a multitude of things, whether it be expansions or forcing wars and different things like that.
So, when you say like these are all player factions, right?
Nope, it can be NPC factions as well.
Oh, I did not realize that.
Yeah, every faction in that game. I mean, if you go and you sell say you're doing commodity trading, and you go and you sell something at a station, whoever owns that station gets an influence bump from you selling it.
Okay.
Same thing with cartographic data. Same thing with, like, if you go to an interstellar factor and you pay off some fines, whoever owns that station, that money kind of goes into their pocket, which it's turned into an influence bump for them.
Okay. So let me. No, go ahead. I don't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, and that comes into play a lot for these BGS players, because there's a time, let's say, I want to attack Tweak's BGS, and I may go and help out some NPC faction somewhere else, so that will start a war with Tweak's BGS group, so that I can do something in another place, and he's blocked from trying to interfere with that because he's in another war.
Yep, counter BGS. That actually was just kind of happening to us. We were in a war and we had somebody we were in a war against an NPC faction, and some player group was working against us. We, could have been a couple of different people. We don't know exactly who it was, but they were fighting that war against us and keeping us busy there, and that allows them to do things in other systems where the bulk of us are busy in one other system. A distraction method, so to speak.
I got you. So let me ask you this: like you talk about like the war and stuff like that. So these are different states of the system, or different states of a station, or how does that work?
Well, if you're in one system, and if the loose screws, if you get in game, right, and you have a home system now, you go to that mission board and you see loose screws on the mission board, and you can see that loose screws is in the system with 6 other factions, and your influence is, for example, 34%. And so your influence will go up and down depending on missions passed, missions failed. If more missions get worked for another faction, then yours can go down, because everybody shares a piece of the pie. It's made up 100% divvied up that many ways.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let me ask you this: so can you have different states for a different station, or is it like system wide?
It's system by system. So if one system is at war, then you won't have war and boom at the same time, or war and a different state expansion at the same time. But if your faction is in multiple systems, you can absolutely have war in one system while you have a boom in another system, while you have pirate attacks in a third system, while you have civil unrest in a fourth system, and you have to keep putting all these fires out all the time.
Right. Okay. So I'm trying to fly and also trying to look at all the different faction states here. So can you so like if you're in what's a good one, so let's say that you're in a like a boom state, can you, like, is there a certain flow that you go from boom to bust, or is it like boom to outbreak, or is it kind of random, or is there ways that I can affect, like?
Oh, there's ways you can affect each state, no matter which it is. Boom basically means there's been good trading happening, and it just constant flow of good trading, which means prices are kind of up a little bit and everything's going well. Boom can bring in pirate attacks, things like that. And if you want to put us out of boom, you sell low. You could do like space trucking, and you buy high at a different station and then bring it to our station and sell low. So you're taking a loss for it, but it's also making us take a loss for it too, which will, in the long run, bring that downwards.
Okay. So like, what are some ways, like, if your system is in a state of, let's say for instance that mean you have opposing factions, and let's say for instance that your system is in a state of what's a good one here to start off with? We'll say expansion. So what exactly expansion, and what things can I do to support it, and what things can, like, if I was with your faction, what things could I do to support it, and what things could I do to prevent it if I was against it?
Well, if you're talking expansion, that is a little bit different than the other states for one reason, really, is in order for a faction to go into expansion, their influence has to hit 75%. So it's pretty high. So if you're working with that faction, if you're in that faction and you want to expand into another system, you have to keep doing missions, selling your commodities, selling your opals, whatever you can do to raise that influence, typically by doing missions more than anything else. And that boosts the influence up to 75%.
And
Once you hit 75%, oh, sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
I was going to say, once you hit 75%, then with the next tick, you go into what they call pending expansion. And that can be pending for up to a couple of days, really. And what it's doing is it's searching the systems from whatever star system you're expanding out of, where you hit 75%, It looks for a system within 20 light years that has 6 factions, or has room for you to move in. So basically 6 factions or less in one system. If it doesn't find any, if everything is full, it can go up to 40 light years. And then you can start talking about invasions. If it has trouble finding one, it will just pop you into a system where now there's 8, and it instantly starts a war the next day, and winner takes all. Whoever wins that war gets to stay in system, and the loser gets kicked out.
And if I understand correctly, an additional proviso to that is that you need to make sure that number one, that it has at least a non-native faction that you can go at,
Yes.
and two that
Yes.
you're not precluded by being in a state of expansion or war somewhere else. So you can push it up to 80% or 90%. If you're in war somewhere else, you can't be in
You
expansion.
can't expand. That's correct.
Right.
And as far as the native factions, that is important, because if you're targeting a certain system to get into, and now mind you, you can't really type in or email FDev and say, yo, we want to move into system X. You kind of have to massage all the systems around you to get you into the direction you want to go. And by doing that, if you know you want to get into the system, but they've got 7 factions already, you find a non-native faction, which means they are not born in that system. Usually they will have a name, if it's system X, then they're going to be the X men or the X whatever. They've always got X in the name, you know what I mean? You cannot force a native faction into retreat. A non-native faction you can force into retreat, and that's pretty hard. You have to get their influence down to 2.5% or less, and you have to hold it there for 7 days. If it
And
goes above that 2.5 one time, that whole process starts over again.
and important with that, because just for people who might not understand, because Tweak just said you can massage it, and there's some people that might not have a clue what that is. Let's say that there's 3 systems that you could move into. There's system 1, system 2, and Sirius. I'm going to throw out a name, because
Sure.
let's say that Tweak wants to move into Sirius. He doesn't want to move into system 1 or 2. That's not where they're interested in. What they can do as a group is they can send people to do missions in system 1 and system 2, so that they can manipulate the 1 or 2 non-native factions in that system that may be up for play, and take them out of play by getting them involved in other conflicts, or by moving them, so that his group, by doing a whole lot of extra work in 3 systems, can make it to where 2 of the systems take themselves out of the running, and now he's free to move into Sirius, which was his goal all along.
Right.
Well, let me ask you this then. So, like, what what is like a typical day look like? Like it's Saturday. You get up. You're gonna play Elite all day. What does that look like from? Like, it's a situation where you get up, you fire up your Xbox, and like, all right, well, this is what I'm doing for the next 16 hours because I have to do these 30,000 things in order to survive, or is it more of a situation where you can kind of say, well, I only need to do these 10 things this week. Like, how much of a time investment is it really?
The BGS is a bit of a time investment. It helps if you've got a good team around you that can put in the time as well.
Mm-hmm.
But one of the reasons I joined the Naval Fleet in LSR, Leviathan Scout Regiment, is because in order to affect the BGS, you are really doing a wide variety of everything. Like I said, you can affect it in so many ways. If I want to kill pirates, I can go take pirate missions and get the big influence pips. You take those missions and you see 3 pip influence or 5 pip influence. Those are great for influence. Or I could break out the Type 9 and deliver 5,000 units of whatever missions. Or I can go mining and sell them at our stations. And really, whatever I feel like doing, I can find a way to make it work for the BGS. Typically, if we're at war, that's where I am. I'm in the CZs doing that, because that's usually the most effective way to win a war. Otherwise, I'm just working the influence up in one system by doing regular missions, or I'm keeping our influence down because we don't want to expand from there. So I'm doing missions for the other factions to raise them up so we come down a little,
Wait a
things
minute,
like
wait a
that.
minute.
So
let me jump in here because you kind of just confused me. So you would do missions for the other faction? Why?
I
That
knew
that
that was gonna
seems like
break.
that seems broke as shit.
I knew that was gonna break Ty's brain.
Well,
So
for example, we have one system. We are in 20 systems right now. And what we want to do as a faction, we're trying to consolidate some of our systems, right? So
Okay.
we're in 20 systems. We don't own all 20 systems. So we want to own the ones that we don't already own, that we're already in. So there's one system where we're at 72.5% last time I checked. We're not trying to expand. It's not our goal to expand out of there. It's just enough people are doing missions out of there or whatnot. So that's constantly borderline going into expansion. So what I do is I go in there and I will run the missions for the other squads, the other factions, just to raise those guys up a little bit, because that when they raise up a little bit, it knocks us down a couple points and it keeps us from going into expansion when we're not trying to.
just go
Go
ahead.
ahead.
No, no,
Okay. All right. What I was going to ask though is like, so it's also one of those things because I know there's like multiple groups that do this stuff. And another
Oh,
way to do that too is like it's like kind of diplomacy. Like, okay, you help us in this system, we'll help you in this system.
oh, absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
We have coalitions with a couple different factions that they need help. You know, they come and help us in PvP situations, or we help them in PvP situations, and we turn around and help them in BGS as in return, or things like that. So,
So
Awesome.
Ty, a key thing to keep in mind is what I said earlier, because I knew that this was going to break your brain when you got to like, wait, why the hell would you run missions for the other side? Let me come back to the key thing you have to remember, Ty, is this: you can only like move in. You can only be on the move and be aggressive and going into one thing at a time. So let's say that I have my heart set on Sirius. Like my group is going to go, we're going to move into the Sirius system. This is our whole linchpin of our whole plan for galactic domination. We're going to go into Sirius and then we're going to move to A and B and C and all these other places. If I look around and I see that holy shit in system lave, where we have a something going on, we've got another group that is running things, but they're kind of like slacking or whatever, and their numbers are going down and our numbers are going up. I have to be very careful with my crew and tell them, yo, go run missions for the other side in lave, because if we go too high, it's going to trigger us to start moving into lave, and that screws us because it blocks us from moving into Sirius, which is what we're aiming at. So
or or you expand when you don't want to into somebody else's space, and it can trigger a conflict with another player faction.
yeah. So a lot of times that's like, all of this has to do with massaging the numbers, because you only want to be high in the place you want to be high, and you want to be low in the other places but not too low, because like you have to keep yourself within a buffer. If you get within a certain range, a certain plus or minus of other groups, that will initiate conflicts with those groups. So sometimes you have to like, the part that's super obvious and intuitive is, well, we want to be strong everywhere, and that, so like, okay, yes, but you don't want to be too strong, because if you're challenging people where you don't want to go, you can a block yourself out of making the moves you do want to make, and b piss off other people and get yourself into extended, you could basically make the Hitler Napoleon mistake of, you're fighting a war on multiple fronts now and you can't focus on what you're trying to get done.
That's very true. You have to think about a lot of things when it comes to BGS.
What's the crappiest part? Like, what's the thing that you're sitting around going, man, I wish they changed this, or this thing sucks, or this thing is awful, or like, what's the thing that you just hate?
Uh, Nothing about the BGS, to be honest with you, because I can always find something that I want to do that will work for it. Like I said, I think the BGS probably is the system that works the best in the whole game, to be honest with you. It's the system that makes the galaxy a living, breathing galaxy, really.
And the hilarious thing is, there's so many players. Like I was having a conversation with Tweaked earlier today, in the Discord, where we were talking about the different things we look for, and he said, "Well, I want this," and I said, "Well, I want that," and and basically I summed it up by saying, "Well, you have to understand though, Tweak, you're playing Alexander the Great. I'm playing Marco Polo. Like we're playing two different games, and it's hilarious because while I understand the BGS, I don't focus on it. So I'm just doing my thing happily and ignoring all of this stuff. But the changes that I'm making in going about my activities are things that he's keeping like meticulous track of if they are in the systems that he's interested
Yep.
in.
So let me ask you this about the BGS then, okay? So when okay, what exactly is because I understand war and I understand civil war, they're kind of the same thing. But what exactly is elections and what do you do with that?
Elections are pretty simple, really. It's I can't remember the exact reason why you go into an election instead of a war. There is one deciding factor, and
So
for some reason,
the difference there is, so like if I am a like an elected party and you are a dictatorship and we
yeah, it's
disagree, we'll go into war. But if we're both elected officials and we both are like part of the
right.
same like
It's
main
the
group,
overall party of of the faction is, I think,
it's
what
a,
decides it. Yeah,
an
right,
election is just a war without blood. So it's literally it's the same thing, except for if I'm an elected official and you're a dictatorship, we'll go into war. If we're both elected, we'll go into an election. If we're both
right.
on the same sort of
And
side.
then all you do is you do data courier missions to spread information around to win the election.
Or
Pretty simple, really.
if you're the side that's currently holding the station, then you have the advantages, the incumbent of you could do other things. You could do the cartographics and the other stuff.
Well, not for the election.
Oh,
The
for the
election,
elections.
nope, for the election, it's kind of like a war where there's certain missions for it.
Oh.
You have to do the strategic data courier, strategic scans, things like that. Just like when you're at conflict, when you're in a war, there are what they call wartime missions on the mission board. So if you don't want to go to the CZs, or if you don't have a ship capable of the CZs that's not engineered enough, you can go to the mission board and you'll see deliver strategic data, which is just a glorified data courier mission, or you'll see go recover these wartime black boxes, and they all count for a point for the war.
So I know that the power play groups have a sort of reoccurring complaint of, let's say, some unscrupulous groups that may or may not have a couple of bot accounts that are, T9s running stuff back and forth all day, every day.
Right.
Is that a situation that you come across a lot in the BGS as a
No,
faction?
not at least not on Xbox. Never had to worry about it. We're a fairly large squadron, and now we have expanded into, like I said, 20 systems. And more often than not, we can keep our BGS fairly steady with enough work and attention. Whereas if there were bots like that, I don't know if we could even combat it. But
Do you find that being a Xbox BGS group, I assume you are primarily focused that way. Do you find that you have a different flavor of interactions with, say, the PS4 groups or the PC groups, or is it just kind of not
nope,
really?
because LSR is on all platforms. So they're on PC and also PS4. So we have guys working. Well, that's the other thing about the BGS, I guess I should mention too, is the BGS is affected by each platform. So when you guys are playing on PC, if you go to my systems and work it, I will see the results of that on Xbox. So everybody's working together in that regard.
So it's not a situation where like your portion of the of Leviathan Scout, like your portion on only affects the Xbox stuff, like the Galaxy's the Galaxy no matter what console you're on.
Right.
Then
That's
why
right.
won't they let
Yep.
us play together? Good lord.
Totally agree.
I'm at a
Well,
point where it
keep
doesn't
in
make any damn
mind,
sense in my brain now. I mean, I
keep
know the whole Sony play. I know the whole Sony does
yeah.
wants to play in their own yard. I get that, but come on. I mean, they've actually already got the API there for them to do that now. So enough's enough. Let's just do this.
Right, I
Yeah.
agree.
Yeah, they let that out very, very late in the cycle, and so it's one of those things that hopefully with the next cycle, as things progress, as Frontier is doing their 2020 paid update, they'll be able to incorporate that going forward. That would be imagine what that would be like, all of us sharing the one galaxy and being able to actually interact meaningfully.
Well,
Well, I
see,
mean, who knows with this 2020 update and all the code changes they're making? Maybe.
well, let me ask you guys. Let me ask you this, Tweak. So, like, Loose Screws is there's about I can't remember how many people in this Discord now. We'll just say there's 50 in this Discord. And let's say that we had 20 people who were wanting to somewhat participate. Do you think it would be in Loose Screws' best interest to create a in-game faction?
I think personally that having an in-game faction adds so much immersion and depth to the game, adds purpose to what you do in the game, that it's the best thing going for the game.
Just a little
When I
update.
was
No, go ahead.
before I joined LSR, I wasn't in. I was just going from station to station doing random missions. I didn't really feel loyal or dedicated to anybody in particular. Once I joined LSR and I could go to the mission board and they're right there, I was like, okay, I'm on this team now, and it just changed things for me. I never am lacking for things to do to help the squadron at this point. So
Where did LSR start out? Like, what's
that's a fair question. I definitely wasn't the beginning with LSR. That's a question for somebody else. They've been around for a couple of years, and there's a couple of military guys in the upper command of LSR. So we're a very organized Discord. We're a very organized squadron, really. You have multiple fleets within the squadron. So you have your PvP fleet, you have your exploration fleet, and you have your BGS fleet. And the way it works when you get recruits is you get recruits, they keep recruit tags until they open up X number of engineers and a couple other things to prove that they can survive. And then they choose what fleet they want to go into. So I'm in the BGS fleet and people come and join me, and that's like our main job. So when we get on, if there's BGS goals to get done, we work that a little bit. But if we feel like it's been done enough, I'll go get in my PvP ship and go spar with the TF-13 guys or different things like that. So we're not locked into only doing one thing if we don't want to.
So while you weren't there for the original, why don't you tell us a little bit about your history with LSR, some of the notable things you guys have done, and without giving up any intel on current ops, like what you're
Sure.
doing now.
Well, when the group I was with merged into LSR and we just became full-fledged LSR, there was a trade fleet along with the other fleets, and that's where I got put into to begin with. So that's how I got my elite ranking in trade. I was mining a ton, making all that money. And then I got really burnt out on mining, and I decided that I liked doing missions and I liked the idea of being able to do a lot of different parts of the game. I didn't want to just do one thing. So I thought the BGS fleet might be for me. When I joined the Navy, I think we were in maybe 7 systems in the year or so that I've been in the Navy now. And it's not just me by any stretch. We have a great team. We got great command. There's another captain in the Navy with me, co-captain, and then we have a rear admiral, and there's some really great strategic planning that happens. We are now in 20 systems. So we've grown exponentially over the last year or so, and I don't see that stopping anytime soon.
And without giving, like I said, future stuff away, what are some of the places you're in now and some of the things you're enjoying?
Well, we are in Wukuku, which is a technology broker, material trader.
Congrats on that. You
Just
just got that last week,
Yes,
yeah?
we did. We are in kind of cool for us. We moved into Eurivia, which is a engineer system, and we're in basically the bubble around those types of areas.
So you're messing with those blue mafia guys, huh?
Yep, constantly.
Right on.
That
And
actually really does affect our BGS because in one of our systems that ESB is in, because everybody that plays the game has to rep up with them in order to get to that engineer. They are constantly moving those guys up in the influence. So we are always going to war with them in that system, like constantly.
let me ask you this. So, like, it's like you said, you got 21 systems, and I'm assuming each system has, one or two stations or more, or maybe like 4 or 5 settlements or more. How do
Uh,
you how do you keep track of all that?
the game's pretty good about that, really. The game keeps track of it real well. We use Inara. Inara keeps track of everything. Plus, we're always active on Discord, so we get all our orders and everything to everybody through Discord. We can look at our systems through Inara. But the great thing that they added with squadrons, as far as the BGS goes, is I can go to my right panel and go to squadrons and then click squadron allegiance, and it will give me a list of all of our systems, and I can click on it and it'll tell me what the influence is and what our states are in that system, so I can keep tabs on it all nice and handy right in game.
So the way most of these seem to go, Ty, is that your group will have its own Discord. You'll have a GCHQ crew. You'll have a couple of guys who like actually spend a lot of time analyzing and looking at whatever, and then they do all the sort of the maths. They figure out, okay, we need to do this here, we need to do that there. They figure out the strategy, and then in the morning they'll post in the Discord in separate channels like, we need cartographic data turned in here. We need missions run for our enemy over there because we're too high. Not enemy, but one of our neighbors there. We need people to focus on doing this here, and they'll call out like, do this, do this, do this, and then the rank and file that just kind of play to play, they'll hop in and they'll say, okay, they need trucking over here, they need data over here, and they need combat over there. What do I feel like doing today? And then they'll just go do it.
So, what sort is there like special things? Because like when you go hunting Thargoids, you got to kind of equip out your ship to go hunt Thargoids. Is there like special things you got to do with your ship to make it to where it's a bit more BGS friendly, or is there specific builds that
Um,
are better for one thing or another?
Personally, I typically have a different ship for each thing I want to do.
Okay.
So I have, if I'm running passengers, I get in my Python that's got a ton of passenger cabins, and that's all I do. If I'm working the CZs, I have a vet kitted out for CZs that's almost unbeatable in there against NPCs, anyways. I did within the last few months build a BGS Python that is kitted out for combat like a PvP ship, but it's got 180 cargo on it and one passenger cabin. So I can go to any of our stations and pick up a pile of, whether it be little delivery missions or one bigger 180 delivery mission, which gives you usually 3 to 5 pips of influence. Or if there's none of those, I can hit the passenger board, or I can do all of the above, and I don't have to go back to the station after one or two jobs. I can just go do my 5 or 6 jobs that I picked up, and if a pirate interdicts me, I can blow them up, take their mats, and move on and finish my mission.
So the short answer to your question, Ty, is no. There's no BGS build. If you're doing cartographics, you put an explorer build. If you're doing, Hazres and or CGs, whatever, you do, if you're doing combat bonds or whatever, you do a build for that. If you're doing trading, you do a build for that. It's just the same stuff that you're already doing in the game. It's just where you're doing it for the purpose of only individual gain in your exploration rank or your money or your combat rank. He's doing it for the group goal.
Okay.
And really, really, one of the biggest differences, I'm willing to bet if you guys do a mission, like if you go to the mission board and you take and assassinate the pirate mission and you complete it, that you will typically, most people, I bet, either take the material reward or they take the money reward. In the
Typically,
Navy,
I
for the
do.
BGS, right, for the BGS, you want to take the reward that shows you the most influence.
Yeah.
Because if I can do 10 missions of higher influence as opposed to just 1 or 2 pip of influence, then it will raise our influence significantly higher than
Yeah.
taking the money reward. So I'll take a little less money to get a little more influence for the squad most of the time.
So just for those who are new and might not understand, like, well, what do you mean? So basically, whenever you do any mission of any kind, you get a money pay. They'll give you options. You can take payout A, B, or C. You can either take the one with more money, or you can take the one that has a material, or the one that has rep, or the one that has influence. And the only difference between rep and influence is rep is I personally get more sort of a boost of my what do you want to call it, reputation,
Reputation with that
yeah, yeah,
faction.
with that faction, whereas influence doesn't do anything for my reputation. It ups that group's reputation in the system.
Right.
Okay. Well, I was actually about to ask that, so I can make sure I understood the difference between reputation and
Yep.
influence.
For example, if Loose Screws is in game, the first thing you would all want to do, and I'd come and do it with you too because we're friends, I would go to your system and I would take all the missions for rep so that I get allied up. Because once you're allied up, you get way better paying missions and everything.
Right.
Once I'm allied up, I'm just taking the influence rewards because that will boost your influence up and up and up.
Okay.
And I have to call out because you said before that we're at like 50, just because the Discord's my baby and I'm working it constantly. We're up to about 80, and if anybody else wants to join, you know, for sure, uh, there's going to be in the show notes, but I'll also make sure that I call it out right now. tinyurl.com// loose screws podcast, LOOSE SCREWS no space, and come join us.
So, you have to excuse me one second. I got a small deal with. I'm on call this week at work, so I had to respond to a text message while I was at work text message. So, um, I think that's so. So I literally pulled up all the questions that people had asked me over the months about the BGS, and then I went through and I think I've asked all of them. They're one a whole lot. Do you guys have anything else y'all want to
So
ask Tweaked about it?
there's two things that I'd like to hit with Tweaked. The first is I'm a big community guy. That's my focus on this game, and I'm not going to let you get out of here, Tweaked, without asking you make some call outs in your community. Shout out some LSR guys that you work with, that you have fun with, and that you want to give a shout out to so they can hear themselves on the show.
Oh, well, if I have to call guys out, I'm calling out my Navy boys. Mutton Dagger is the rear admiral of the fleet, Captain Trizzle, both heavy hitters for the influence and getting things done. And then my lieutenants, Captain Juicy Jams and Tatsua. Can't beat these guys, man. I got a good team that's helping get all this kind of stuff done. And everybody that I just named off really fell in love with the BGS of actually having that much of an effect on the galaxy. What other game can you play where you can change the political scheme of the galaxy? And not power play political, but within the factions. It's just I don't know any other games where I can move things around like this and have that kind of control over the galaxy.
It's interesting because, for us, we're basically playing, pew pew spaceship game, and in a way it's like he's playing that, but at the same time he's playing civilization, where it's like,
Yep,
okay,
yep.
trying to move stuff around on the map, which is very, very cool. So the other question that I had, and this is a two-parter. The first is, how many, like, I don't know if this is a sensitive thing that whatever, but about how many members would you say you guys have, and about how many members would you say the average BGS groups have?
As far as our BGS group, I'd say we probably have active maybe 8 to 10 guys, I guess, that are fairly active. And that's probably on the high end from what I understand for most squads. But
Okay.
it works out way better. I mean, when I first started, there was 2 or 3 of us, and you really had to do a lot of work to get things done. Now we can spread it out a little more. So
So
the BGS, it's like if you guys had 50 people in your faction, if you made an in-game faction, not all 50 would have to work the BGS if you didn't want to, but if you had 10 or 15 guys that enjoy doing that kind of thing, you could absolutely massage, especially a small squad and stuff like that, and handle everything.
right on. And lastly, I can't let you wrap up this section, and hopefully you'll stay with us for the whole show. But we can't wrap up this section without your thoughts on the new system states that were just introduced with the patch.
Well, I haven't had the luxury of seeing them any of them in game yet. So one thing I've learned with FDev is I can read all about it and expect one thing, and when I see it actually play out, it can be a whole different thing. But I think a lot of them are going to bring some interesting gameplays where, for example, none of us really do a ton of space trucking, so to speak. But if there's a drought, we're going to have to go pick up a ton of water and come and drop it off in our system. So that's going to incur some night. I foresee us doing that, and it'll be just something that normally we wouldn't have ever done. But one other thing I did want to say about the BGS real quick too, which kind of goes into space trucking and trading that people I don't think really understand, is if you have a system or a station in a system and you go to the outfitting, say you want to put new hard points on your ship, and you say, man, the hard points here kind of suck. Why don't they have this? Why don't they have that? You can change that. You can change that by commodity trading. You find the good trade route, get the different things to sell them at a high price over there. And if you do it enough, and it does take a lot of work, you can actually change the outfitting of the system, or excuse me, of the station.
That's awesome. Now, is it just unlocked randomly as you get to certain levels, or is there like a preset as you get to certain levels, or can you
It
choose
doesn't tell
according to
you
your
any.
faction?
Nope, nope. It's just as you start bringing in more commodities and you raise that economy up, the outfitting slowly gets better and better and better. There's no way to choose how you want to do it or anything like that. It just all of a sudden you'll notice, hey, they have size, I don't know, size 5 beams or size 5 prizzies now when they didn't have it last week, and
So you could actually game it to where you could actually end up, your system could actually, or your station could actually end up with better stuff.
absolutely.
Oh,
Yep,
that's
no
pretty
doubt
cool.
about it.
Very cool.
Are there like limitations on that you've seen? Like if you have like class 5 prismatics and then you game it up to where you get like class 6, like is there like a cap on it or something to where you'll never see the class 8s?
Nope, you can get it all the way up to class 8 if you do enough trading.
That's pretty cool. So that's why so back before I had elite, that's why you'd be looking for a particular module. This week we'll have it. Next week it won't. I never.
Right, and that's exactly why that is. Yep.
Wow, 5 years, never knew that one. Learn something new every day.
That's the great thing about this game is you can. I don't care how much time you've put into this game. There's still something you don't know about it. So
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this, man. So like, we got this big. Well, okay. Let me start off with fleet carriers. How do you think fleet carriers will affect the BGS, or do you think they will affect it at all?
a couple of ways for that I think. First of all, I'm gonna love it for those systems that we have that only have tin can stations. Because in the CZs, I'm typically flying my vet, just because it's a sure thing. You know what I mean? I have some medium ships, but they don't have the ammo. You have to have a certain build to work well in the CZs, I believe.
Right.
With a fleet carrier, I can park that thing right outside of the CZs in that system, and then me and my squad mates can land all of our vets on it and restock there, and we don't have to fly all the way back out of system to go to a large station.
Okay.
Or a situation we just had where all the CZs were 100,000 light seconds away from the station. Instead of flying that every time, you just park it right out there, restock, refuel, right back to the CZs. The other way I think it can happen is, and I think this is going to be a PvP thing too, if my BGS wants to mess up your BGS, what better way than to land a fleet carrier outside of your system somewhere and use that as a home base to go mess with your stuff?
Do you think because it's been kind of guessed that like the trading support ships to the fleet carriers will have the ability to sell commodities? Do you think? Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say, I think they will. I think it's going to be role specific. So the explorers are going to have certain things they can do. A trader's going to have commodity market most likely, and
How,
it'll be interesting.
how do you see the commodity market? Like, if I flew my fleet carrier into your system, how do you see that commodity market affecting the BGS? Like, do I get to pick which faction that the influence goes to from the commodity market, or do you think a
Well, that
situation where it's just random as to wherever it is?
well, I think it would go to your faction in that case. If you fly yours out there and it has a commodity market, if you're taking things from yours to mine, it's going to affect both of us in that way. But if it's going to be your faction that gets the influence up or down or whatever's going on there from a fleet carrier, I think.
So you can make the same argument with like for the exploration one. Like, you could park an exploration one like a further out system. You could effectively start doing influence in that system with just your fleet carrier then, huh?
Yeah, I think so.
Do you think that we'll see kind of a great big shakeup with the fleet carriers in the BGS to where people are doing more kind of undermining stuff?
I think it's a possibility. BGS really, I mean, there's some people that absolutely hate working the BGS. They just want to do PvP. And
Mm-hmm.
there's other people like myself that find it totally fascinating and do it all the time. So that's the thing about the fleet carriers is we don't know. I mean, is FDev just going to give us the fleet carrier and say, okay, now go find something to do with it? Or are they going to create content that we need a fleet carrier to go do something with? I'm curious to see how that's going to work out for us.
What is your ideal scenario? Like, what do you want out of fleet carriers that they haven't said that's coming?
Yeah, I don't really know. I quite honestly, I'm pretty happy with everything that they've said it's coming. Really,
Yeah.
as long as it doesn't break the game. I mean, if this last update is any indication, I'd rather not have the fleet carriers if they're going to put it in and it's going to totally break the game. So hopefully they get that stuff straightened out in that amount of time. But everything that they've said about the fleet carriers sounds great. It's just a matter of getting them out here.
Yeah. So let me also ask you about the 2020 update. What do you want out of the 2020 update, and what do you think that's coming?
Well, two things, I think. One, I hate going out in the black. I have learned the hard way that I am not an explorer.
Okay.
But if they added atmospheric planets and gave me different things to see when I got out there, that might entice me to go explore. So if they want people doing that, that would be one route to go. Me personally, though, I'm not a big first-person shooter fan, but I could deal with it. I prefer third person myself. I'm a huge Mass Effect fan. I love Red Dead. I love the kind of combat that you have where you can duck behind crates or around walls and shoot from cover and all that kind of stuff that you usually can't do in first person. But Space Legs, my idea for it, and I don't know if this is what they're doing, obviously. You know how now when we're at war, you go to a station and you pick up a massacre mission to kill 72 ships from the opposing faction?
Mm-hmm.
Now you go to the station and you pick up a massacre mission to kill 52 whatever, and it tells you to land on planet B4 in this system and go to settlement whatever, and you get out of your ship and you take out Thargoids or pirates or whatever the case may be, you know, and whether it be a first person or a third person kind of combat. You run out of your ship, you have your weapons, you're hiding behind things, you're shooting things, and then you go back to your ship and you go back up into space and do what you do. And if you don't want that in the game, you never have to do it. It's totally optional.
Yeah. Well, I think that we were all kind of in the mindset that I think we all kind of prefer atmospheric stuff over space legs. I think that's kind of the consensus overall. But that being said, I think FDevs are going to give us something pretty good. So,
I agree.
do we have anything else related to the BGS we want to ask here, guys? Is there just anybody in the chat have any questions for Tweaked regarding the BGS?
I mean, I'm just still trying to process like everything. This has been a very informative episode.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's good stuff.
Yeah.
It's good stuff.
Well, Tweaked, if you need a bell out, man, I appreciate you joining us, and if you want to stay, you're more than welcome to stay. Feel free to.
I can hang out for a while longer if you don't mind.
Absolutely, absolutely, you're welcome. So, the news, there was I think we are kind of talked about the patch that released Tuesday that introduced a stuttering issue. We've already talked about this, haven't we? I'm going off notes here. Sorry, guys.
No, it's okay.
I can exit out of that then. Exit out of that. Let's go down to the next set of notes. All right. It's almost like I'm doing this for, I'm professional here, can't you tell?
What I say when I'm on stream and somebody's like, "Hey, you don't have your video game up." I'm a professional streamer, guys. I know what I'm doing.
I think that's going to bring us to Elite Week with Kai.
Right on.
What you got for us, Bubba?
So first, and I meant to do this last week, and I sincerely apologize. We got swept up, and it missed me. But so I want to make sure everyone, please take a moment and go to tinyurl.com/PS4CQC. Now, if you click on the ticket there, our PlayStation 4 brethren can get access to their CQC. I personally am not a huge CQC guy, and I play on PC. I don't play on PlayStation. But the Lave Radio guys last week called out, their guest called out and said that basically for PlayStation 4 players, CQC has been broken for like a year, where they go in, they'll queue up, they start, and then when they die, unlike everyone else who you die and then you repop and then you go back out there and continue the PvP fight. For them, they go to black screen. So even if you're not a PlayStation 4 player, PC players, Xbox players, everyone, have a heart, go over, click on that link. You are not, this isn't a situation of like you're griping or moaning or being a malcontent. This is the system that FDev has given us that they want us to use to say what's important to us to fix. And if everyone goes out there and clicks on that link, which is tinyurl.com/PS4CQC, you can just, it takes 2 seconds. You just click on it, you click to vote for that thing, and that just tells FDev, hey, we would like this focused on so that these guys can get back to playing the game the way they want to play it. So that's a huge thing. It takes 2 seconds. It will be in the show notes for anyone who needs it as well. All of the show notes can be found in our show notes channel on the Discord, and just join us. Come take a look. All right, so let's start now. I wanted to give shout outs to Commander DJ Wiley of the email that we're going to discuss in just a little bit. He came back from an exploration trip successfully, and I just wanted to give him a quick shout out. 10K Tat just for being awesome. Gav D Cook for his awesome screenshots and his like commemorating his return from his Colonia adventure. Also, big shout out to OK Piper for unlocking the cutter and Devoluter for unlocking the vet. Congrats to you guys. New to our Discord this week, in addition to the man, the legend, Stephen Benedetti from FDev, we've got Anabaric, we've got Cinnamon Ring, Joke, the Rev, Jack Shafto, Rusty Dog, the streamer. We've got Exegius, the streamer. We've got Souverine of Lave Radio and Sagittarius Eye and Parallel Worlds fame. We've got Zen, Golden Poncho 812, PGD Camp, Peter Hudson. We have the infamous Harry Potter, who we'll talk later, but I gotta say, I know everyone hates Harry Potter or whatever because he's like, oh, he's, the big bad guy or whatever. There's more to that story than you know. And you may be finding out about that at some point in the future. So just keep an open mind. We've got Lark Shadow, Cool Guy 184102. And then that brings us to our story time.
Cool guy. If I can interdict there, Cool Guy's an LSR member. Welcome, Cool Guy.
Right on, man. So for last week's story time with Old Man Ty, I'm looking at the screenshot channel and I see that DJ Wiley, Raxla Smaxla, Dr. Cameas Corelli, Lieutenant Commander Data, and myself, we all went down got to experience that with Ty. We did the things and posted pictures and got to see the whole story. For Kai's question from last week, what do you want from fleet carriers? We do have some responses, but I want to continue this for next week. We've got a lot of stuff we're doing this week, so we're going to push forward, and I want to get more responses. I want more people to have a chance to respond on what they want out of fleet carriers. But since I'm not giving you that answer this week, I'm going to give you a pro tip, hashtag pro tip, to sort of pay it back. So everyone needs to be doing power play. Just do it. Get yourself in, pledge to somebody, buy the stuff, move on to the next. Um, a lot of times people start with Ashling Duvall for the prismatic shields, and because she's a little cutie, that's awesome. But after you get your prismatic shields, a lot of times people are like, well, I don't know if I want other stuff, and I don't want a lot of modules sort of clogging up my limit because you can only have a certain amount of modules before it won't let you have any more. Well,
120.
here's what you do.
That's why I buy another Anaconda.
Well, yeah, that's exactly it. Here's what you do: go in, buy ships. Now, actually, I find the gunship to be ideal for this. If you buy, because federal gunships are not that expensive. If you have the rep to unlock them, they're not that expensive. They have a massive number of weapon slots, and then you just make a gunship called Cyto Scramblers or Pack Hounds, and you fill it up with Scramblers and Pack Hounds. Not a lot of people know this, but there's actually a soft limit of 250 ships per commander that you're allowed to have before you get to problems. And I pulled that directly from Frontier forums where it was listed by a dev. So I've got that in the show notes as well. So
Let me interject here real quick on that.
sure,
The Challenger has the same number of, not the same type, but the same number of hard points. So that's a good alternative if you don't have the rep. The Alliance
that's true
Challenger.
as
So
well. That's absolutely true as well. Um, so let's see. Continuing through with, I'm sorry, I've been going super fast. Does anybody have any comments on the shout outs or the new to the Discord or story time? Any of that?
I actually have a shout out. Darkest Vim hit Elite this week. So congrats to him, man.
Oh man, congrats!
Very
That's
cool.
awesome.
And I did my part as far as the PS4 CQC and went and voted while you were telling us about it.
Oh,
Yep.
thank you, sir. That's very awesome. All right. So, looking at the media that came out this week, obviously, so on Friday, you always get there's three pieces of general like news that you get every week. Friday, you get Witch Space News by Commander Burr and the Burr Pit, and you get Obsidian Ants 3306. Both of them were good this week. Check them out. They're basically covered the stuff that we covered in last Thursday's show because they came out hours after that, and they covered basically patch notes and Thargoids are back. Um, Friday stream, definitely take a look. Uh, Commander Exegius had a stream with the AXI, and I've got a link to it in the show notes, talking about the history and lore of all things Thargoids and the AXI and in the in-game lore going from 3300, then first moving backwards and showing like, okay, these were the INRA things, these were the things from the previous interactions, and then going forward, and these are from when they first found barnacle sites and interdictions first started happening and all of canon researches stuff. And it's a very good show. It's like a 2-hour stream. If you're into the history of the Thargoids and you're super excited because now the Thargoids are back and you want to like know what's going on with all that, check that out. Then moving into Monday, we had my favorite news show of the week. It comes out every Monday, and that's when my week starts, which was Hello Dave. And Hello Dave this week on the Best Damn ED Weekly show, we got a very cool shout out from Down to Earth Astronomy. And he talked about stuff that was going on with his channel, but he also told everybody, hey, check out Loose Screws podcast and put a link in there, which was very kind of him. So thank you very much. Moving on to Tuesday, we had patch one, the January patch. Like we already said, the stutter and everybody's, everybody's experiences with that. Patch 2 was the following day to fix the stutter. And that later that day, a very cool another video came out by Down to Earth Astronomy called "I Got Killed by the Planet of Death." Again, the link is in the show notes. He goes through, explains the science behind the planet of death, shows you him going and what happens if you don't dismiss your ship, and he tries to take off in the ship and it explodes hilariously. Comes back and has a very cool, like 10-minute long science talk about how the actual things work with this. Then has a neat little segment where he just shows you riding through in like a time lapse with very kind of beautiful piano music playing in the background, and you just get to enjoy the visual. And then coming back, talks through, how you do it, how you get in, how you get out. It's very, very cool. Any Anybody want to hop in on any of that real quick before I move on? Okay. So that same day, Rusty Dog put out a very cool stream where he does post-patch stream things, all of the things he shows you in detail as he was going through. And Exesius also put out, both of them put out a post-patch testing the things, which were very cool. I was on the Exesius one, and it was a great conversation, and we were uh, doing a lot. And that's where I started talking more with Harry Potter about a lot of things in the past, which we're going to set something up so you can hear more about at some point. Um, let's see here. That brings us to today. So today, the big goings on were Commander Exegius did a stream with our friend of the show, Alec Turner, the extraordinary, uh, with regard to all thing Buckyball Racing Club, and specifically the Halpy Hand run that's going on right now. So they talked about the history of, well, first they talked about the history of Alec Turner in the game, and talked about different things he's done with his Alec Turner's Best of the Forums and different groups he's been involved in, and so forth. And then the history of the Buckyball Racing Club from its formation, some of the different runs that they have out now, and some of the different like records that have been set and so forth. And then they also actually did a test run. Exegius went through as his first time, just went through as a virgin and did it. And I'm gonna let you watch for yourself, but there's a link in the notes. You gotta go check it out. It's very, very cool. And for anyone who has not yet checked it out, if you are new to the show and you don't, you haven't heard all of them going back. A couple episodes ago, we did one with Alec Turner, an interview with him talking about his thoughts on all manner of things. It was just Ty and Alec Turner one on one. It was a phenomenal interview. So go check that out, and definitely check out this stream. Also today, happening was Frontier Development. Stephen Benedetti did a stream with the Hutton Truckers, and they did a whole event. There is an event going on right now where, and this is crazy, guys. The Hutton Truckers have decided that they're going to fix mods, which is mug ownership deficiency syndrome, which is like people don't have Hutton mugs, so they don't have the
That's
Hutton
such a
spirit.
good title.
Yeah. So the way they're going to fix that is by uh, hand delivering a Hutton mug to every one of I forget the exact number. I think it's like 57,000 stations in this game. So they got together a huge crew and they started kicking it off. And they kicked it off live on the stream. It is a process that is ongoing and will be ongoing for some time. But if you remember last week when I mentioned these guys are complete nutters. They're awesome. They're silly. This has no point other than to do it. If you want to take part in a very cool, weird, funky project, so you can say, "Hey, I was a part of that. I remember when we took mugs to every station in the galaxy. I did that." Go check out uh, the Hutton Truckers. Check out their Discord. Check out that stream, which there is a link in the show notes to. and they will have more information of who you contact or whatever. This is going to be a project that's going to be going on for some time. Get involved, go get some mugs, take them somewhere, and help cure the poor space nerds that have mug ownership deficiency syndrome. And I dare you to say that 3 times fast without tripping over your own tongue. Any thoughts on that, guys?
I'm taking a mug to Hutton Orbital. That's my plan.
You're doing the reverse project. You're like, all right, I need to make sure Hutton is stocked with mugs. That's a beautiful thing, man.
We got to make sure that they're not depriving themselves of their own mugs.
That's
Well,
right.
the problem with that plan is the only place where you can get Hutton mugs is Hutton. So now you're gonna have to go there. You're gonna have to get it. You're gonna have to leave, and you're gonna have to spend the hour and a half to fly back and deliver it.
Oh no,
But
my plan was, oh, they already got them. Okay, I'm done then. I don't have to.
oh, okay.
I've already done multiple treks out to Hutton Orbital. There is no free anaconda.
Hey, lies, and
No, it's
innuendo.
not free. It's $25, right? 25
It's no,
credits.
it is 100 credits, and yeah, I find that hilarious that people still fall for that. They go out there and they're like, "There's no." It's like, guys, there's no large landing pad. How would you get it? It's not even physically possible. But
Okay, so real quick, did anybody actually fall for that like back in the day before they?
oh yes, they did.
No, no. I mean, people in like, did anybody in here fall for it?
Oh no, I wasn't
No,
playing
no, no,
back
no,
in the
no.
day.
Yeah.
Nope, me either.
See, I did not fall for it, and the reason why I did not fall for it because I'm sitting there going, "There's no way in hell they would give us away a freaking free anaconda." That was my. It had nothing to do with the fact that I'm sitting there going, "There's just not a large landing pad." I was like, "They're not gonna give us a free anaconda. There's just no way." That was
Yeah,
that. Yeah. There you go.
but here's the deal though, when you do get out to Hutton, you've got Flossie and Psycho Cow and Wilma Fingerdew and Rudolph Fucker. They all come out and they give you a hug, and that's just as good as an anaconda in my book. So
I don't know. I don't even really
yeah,
like
man.
the anaconda. I might like the hugs better.
See, yeah. Let me tell you something. Once you've had a Flossie hug, you never go back. All right. So that brings us up to the Thargoid report. Now, I've committed that I will be giving you news on any interstellar initiatives and CGs that come up when we're back to having them. But in the meantime, I will keep you updated on the Thargoid menace. So, Thargoid report, 16 January 3306. Um, so last week, Thargoid forces were successfully pushed out of 6 systems across both the Pleiades Nebula and the Witchhead Nebula. All incursion state systems were reported clear after as little as 50 hours. The post disaster evacuation service, along with independent pilots, were working diligently to support multiple burning stations and got all of them clear. With the first wave of incursions subsiding, Operation Ida plans to swoop in and immediately begin repairs across the affected Pleiades systems for now. Good luck and Godspeed to those supporting and the repair and recovery efforts. There are no new incursion systems reported. We got every last one of those bugs, so good for you.
Squashed.
Beyond incursions, there are still large numbers of non human signal sources that can be found throughout the Pleiades Nebula and the Witchhead Nebula. So, for general Xeno combat at any time, get your ass down there and squish some bugs. There are new infestation systems, however. The following systems have been marked by the Eagle Eye in game as under infestation. Unless sufficient Thargoid presence is destroyed within them, they will come under incursion next week. So we've got the Pleiades sector, DL-Y D65. We've got HR 1183. We've got Electra. That's a very cool name for a system. We've got HIP 1185. We've got Taygeta, Taygeta, and Wellington, Wellington. So, as an addendum, it appears as though We've scared off the Thargoids for this week. Despite the reports from Eagle Eye, no new incursion systems have spawned as of yet. Until an incursion system does appear, there are currently 0 burning stations. So those of you who are looking to do a little smoke jumping, you're going to have to wait for another week to do some rescue work. But for now, we got it under control. Station repairs rather. Joint Operation IDA as they undergo the mammoth task of rebuilding and repairing humanity's station. To not only bring back vital infrastructure, but to also support the ongoing rescue and combat operations in these systems. So it is key that we fix these stations not only for the purpose of having them repaired, but also so that the combat pilots have those station services so that they can most effectively fight back the Thargoid threat. So join Operation IDA Discord below. I've got the information here for the Operation IDA Discord, the AXI Discord, as well as the knowledge base for both of them. So in the show notes, if you look, it'll show you there's a clickable link and it'll take you right to their Discord or to their website so you can read how all of this works, what you can do to join. Then you click on the Discord, you go in, they'll help you get set up and get you started. Anybody get any bug hunting activities? Anybody have any fun squishing bugs this last week, or have anything that any cool stories they want to tell about bug squishing?
I don't have any bug squishing stories. I do have a couple of elite stories I did this week, but you know.
No bug squishing for me. I've been killing NPCs left and right, though.
The only time that I've witnessed a bug was when long before I was a part of this podcast, but like I was playing with a friend of mine, and he got like one of those anonymous tip-offs that told him to go to this like area, and we had found this like abandoned ship, and we were just kind of flying around it, and we were like, whoa, and then we like found like another thing that said go to here, so we went to here, and all of a sudden it was just like, wait, what the hell is that? And we were trying to shoot it, and of course we didn't know at the time, but obviously you got to have anti-Xeno weapons.
Yep. Well, I mean, they are extra effective for sure, and you definitely want to have a shutdown field neutralizer.
All right, so I just looked over at the YouTube chat, and my buddy Cody's in there, and I'm gonna tell the story real quick of the time that me and Cody went Thargoid hunting. So I'm working on my combat elite, and as I'm working on that, Cody says, "Well, hell, I'll hop out there with you, and we'll go do some Thargoid hunting together." I'm like, "All right, cool." So we kitted him out a ship. I think it was what kind of ship? I think we got him an Alliance Chieftain kitted out pretty quick. And Cody hadn't been playing the game real long. I'd say it was about maybe 3 or 4 months, maybe 5, 6, somewhere around there. We fly all the way out to freaking Pleiades. We track down like a threat level 6 or threat level 7 or something like that. And we get in there and we're shooting these scouts, and I'm telling them, right, you gotta avoid the dust clouds, otherwise you get infected or you get caustic damage and you get poisoned or whatever, how you want to put it. And then we get out there and we're flying around. We get into the very first thing. Cody's almost dead. I'm almost dead because I'm trying to help him out. I had a decontamination limpet on my chieftain. I launch it to try to help him out. As soon as I get him decontaminated, he flies right through another one. I'm following him. I fly right through that one. And then all I can remember is him just going, man, this is some of that bullshit. I was just laughing my ass off because we're having to haul ass to the damn station because I ran out of limpets like pretty quick because we kept flying through the shit and the damn Thargoids were kicking our ass. We get out, we did like an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours worth of work to get out there. We spend maybe 10-15 minutes doing it, and then we go dock at the station to fix ourselves. And Cody goes, "All right, well I'm done with this shit."
The only thing I could think of as you're like telling me this is like, we've all seen Family Guy, right?
Yeah.
of like the scene when Cleveland's bathtub is flooding out the side of the house, and he's just like, no, 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 no.
Oh man, that was a good time, man. Yeah, yeah, fuck those bugs. You're exactly right, buddy. It was we had a good time though, but
Well, so for all of our listeners out there, you really want to get the opportunity yourself to get out there and see this part of the story. It's been gone for 5 months, so it's a big deal that it's back. It brings different aspects to the game. It brings the opportunity to level up your rep really fast with the Federation or the Empire by doing
boo.
Rescue missions.
rescue missions where you get passengers off the burning ships and burning stations rather, and I mean it just gives you an opportunity to see a real cool thing, and if you ask me, this is not just back as a random thing. This is back as the precursor. It can stay a little random with some incursions here and there to begin with, but this story is going to just
It's a
ramp up
design.
and up and up, and it's going
Totally
to
agree.
lead into the 2020 paid update where we're going to have a continuation of the Thargoid story, and we're going to have some new relevant details. So I'm very excited for this.
Yeah, I was actually kind of excited when the Thargoids came back, and I started dusting off that cheat, and I was like, I'm starting to get the itch again. But the difference is this time. So the first time, all I had was the AX weapons. This time, I got Guardian weapons, and I think it's time I go visit my Thargoid buddies again. Although I still believe that we are the aggressors in this scenario, but that's a different story.
Well, I shared with you last week the Twitch, or sorry, the Twitter, and I'm going to actually add that to the show notes for Malik VR. He has an amazing long Twitter rant that goes on for like many, like 90 plus posts where he goes through the history of our encounters with the Thargoid and why he believes like through each step of the way sort of we're the ones in the wrong, and I'm not saying I necessarily subscribe to his full theory, but it is an interesting theory, and I feel like at least half of it has a lot of like weight behind it, where it's like I could see that being the case for sure.
Yeah. Well, what else you got for us, Kai?
So I'm gonna go ahead and push back because we're running late. I'm gonna go ahead and push back the content creator of the week for this week because I do need to take a second and really hit something that came in the patch that happened differently than we thought we were going to get. I do want to say with regard to the patch, and the patch came out on Tuesday. It created a bug of this stutter thing. They put out a patch on Wednesday. It fixed the stutter. For my money, and I know there's all kinds of people's different opinions, and you're entitled to whatever opinion you have on it. But for my opinion, like number one, they gave us a patch that wasn't even just bug fixes. It had a good amount of bug fixes in it. It also had new content development. It had new
6 new
system
BGS
states.
dates. Yeah.
Yeah, it had new system states, which we don't even know exactly how all that's going to play out, but it's just awesome that it had that. It had a new way that you could do like two different choices of exploration. Like you could do it this way or you could do it that way with regard to doing the FSS scanner for the geosites or flying to them for the geosites. It had, the rebuy back on your crew member. It had a lot of things on there that were even more than just simple bug fixes. The one thing that came in that wasn't great was the stutter. Okay, they fixed it a day later. Now,
and
for our
and the
Xbox
CZs.
brethren, you're still waiting, and we know, but that's not Frontier's Development's fault. They put out a thing, and they got to wait until Xbox signs
Nah,
off on it. They do. They have to wait.
nah,
So,
nah,
okay,
nah. I,
you
this,
may
I
you may
am
all you want.
I am a person that I am a supporter of FDev and I like them, but let's be honest now. If they hadn't introduced the bug, they wouldn't have had to wait.
Right. I agree.
Well, so
Totally love FDev, and I love this game. With it's on my top all-time games list, you know. But when you're gonna put forth a new patch, especially when it was beta tested,
okay.
you would expect for it not to have all these issues.
So I will take on board what you said, and I will agree, but I will point out that when they were beta testing it, they were trying to decide, are we going to go with option A or option B for how you do the scanning? And what they decided was, based on, they had a massive amount of input from both sides. There were a lot of people saying, do not make this change. We do not want this change. We like the current system. So
Right.
what they did was they gave you both. And then they didn't run a second beta, then test how both work. And so there was an unexpected consequence. But to have that, I played today. I played on Wednesday for many hours. Today I worked a lot, so I didn't get to play as much as I'd like. But Wednesday I worked for many hours, and it was good. It was running smooth. So for me personally, I think this patch was great, and keep it up. I would very much like to see. I would very, very much like to see another patch like this. Say, maybe what do you call it? Another beta, say some point in February, and then another patch like in March, April, and then May, June, see the carriers. But this was, as far as I'm concerned, good things. But I do want to get to the thing that I pushed off the creator corner for this week, which is the mining change. So the mining change, there was a lot of speculation back and forth on how it was going to work, and I feel pretty much that my speculation was accurate with regard to the differences for the what do you call it, the supply and demand situation. And we're going to need a couple weeks to see how that plays out in the midterm, and we're going to need just like a month or so to see how that plays out in the long term. But there is a second part to the mining change that was not explained before, was not described, sort of in the patch notes. Really, this was a separate thing that caught me as a surprise. And I have a link to a Reddit post from the elite miners that has an explanation and a detailed analysis of it. But basically, um, so it happened exactly as described in the patch notes, but what nobody thought was that the prices vary from commander to commander. So this was something that nobody had expected. In every situation, every station that has a max and min price for the commodity, there is also a second variable, which is that it will be further refined based on the amount that you personally have to sell. So the more demand is met, the price falls. We knew that was going to happen. This means that prices aren't the same for all, but they change according to what you want to sell and have in your cargo as you enter the station. This was something we did not know. So they did an in-depth test at Hopkins Terminal and Ross 71 system. They tested it on January 15th. And what they found was, if you come into the station with 500 tons of painite and you look to sell them in 100 tons scale, where you step it down as at 100 ton, you can get offered 636,563 credits per ton for a total of 318.281 million for the full set. If you have 400 tons, so 100 tons less of painite, the offer price goes from 636,563 to 725,696. So you're basically getting just under 100,000 a ton more if you have less on you. If you have 300 tons, it's 814,829. So again, almost 100,000 more. If you have 200 tons, it goes up to 903. If you have 100 tons, it's 931. So this particular system was in what's that new state? The public holiday
Public
or
holiday,
yeah. So they were offering even more
top
than
dollar.
what you would see as the previous top dollar, the boom top dollar for pay night. Normally, you would see it go as high as just under 900,000. You would see it go to like 890, 870 in that range. This was going up to like 931, but only if you had 100 tons or less to sell. If you had 200 tons, it went down to like right at 900,000. If you had 300, it went down to 8 and change, 407 and change, 506 and change. So to give you an idea, if you sold 500 tons of painite, you would make a total of 318, or excuse me, yeah, 318,281,500. If you sold 300 tons, so, 3/5 as much, you would make 244, 448, so 245 million. Like, this is something that we did not know was going to happen. And I guess when you think about it, it kind of, and I know some people might be glazing over like, oh, that's a lot of math, dude, like whatever. But like, what this is saying here is, imagine you go to a store and you want to sell them Beanie Babies, and you say, look, I got a Beanie Baby here. I'll sell it for whatever, $20. I don't know why I picked Beanie Baby as a reference, but I got a widget, and I want to sell you one widget. I'll sell it for $20. They might say fine, but if you show up and say I've got a truckload of 10,000 widgets, they're not going to want to pay you $20 per widget because they're like, dude, I'm buying in bulk. Cut me a deal. So what this is meaning to me, what this says to me, is that while we're going to see, the market continue to fluctuate, and with the supply and demand, and we'll have to see how that plays out a little more, there's also a situation where this favors the smaller ships, smaller mining amount. So you could say like, hey, this favors void opals over, say, painite, because with void opals, you're normally going out, you're going core hunting, you're doing it in smaller ships, you're getting a smaller amount, and you're not staying out for, quite as much time. Um, it's a situation where by getting smaller amounts, you know, you sell it for a higher profit margin per hour, but you have to factor in still the turnaround time of getting to and from the field, to the sale position. So it's a very weird, complicated mathematical formula where you're going to have to look and see for your time how much it is. But it's very trippy to me that, Ty and I can both go to the exact same station at the exact same time. And if he has 500 tons of painite and I have 100 ton of painite, they're basically offering me per ton of painite a massive amount more than they're offering him. They're offering me 931,370 credits per ton. They're only offering him 636,000 credits. They're offering me a full third more for mine than they're offering him. I think we're going to see some different builds. We're going to see some people, maybe. Here's the other thing. This works based on a snapshot of what ton of what commodity you have when you dock. So we might start seeing some very cool videos put out by some guys much smarter than myself that say like, hey, I did this run. Here's what you do. You get uh, 300 tons of painite, 300 tons of
Right,
low
right,
temperature diamonds, and the last 120 tons you get this material. And
right.
based off the
Yeah,
math, by breaking it up into the lower sections, you can still come in with the big mother ship, but it doesn't have all of one commodity because you're going to
right.
get
What this says
penalized.
to me is they're promoting. When I was void opal mining, I would pass over everything that wasn't a void opal. Now it might be more profitable to get those low temperature diamonds, to get that bromolite, to get whatever and sell 100 tons of each, and you might find you make out a little better in the long run.
That's exactly what I was going to say. It sounds to me like a situation where you'd be better off going and having like 100 tons of this, 100 tons of that. Uh, so yeah, I think you're exactly right, Tweaked. Let me ask you this, Tweaked. How do you think that this change is going to affect the BGS, or do you think it's going to affect it at all?
I don't really think it's going to have a huge effect other than if my station is one that for some reason is selling, if we're in public holiday and we're selling void opals for 1.8 mil, I'm willing to bet we're going to get a lot of random commanders coming in to sell for a little while, and that will give if we own the station, it will give an instant boost to our influence. If we don't own the station, it'll boost whoever does, and could have conflicts or whatnot happen as a result.
So you might actually see some side effects you're not even expecting with it, huh?
Oh, sure.
I'm curious.
Like I said, the BGS is always affected by everything. So everything they put in like this in one way or another is going to have an effect on the BGS.
Yeah, and here's the thing too. Like we haven't even quietly. So this is kind of like one of those things where when they did the beta test, I think the beta test was up for like 4 or 5 days. I don't think it was even up for an entire week. And I kind of would have liked them have. I kind of would have liked to have seen them do a couple different iterations of the beta. Like this is up for 3 or 4 days, and then like with the exploration change that kind of caused the stutter. It would have been like to. I would have enjoyed it better if they had a couple of different iterations of it kind of floating around. And maybe there's some stuff
Probably
on the
would have worked
back
better.
end. Yeah, probably would have. There's probably some stuff on the back end that affects that we don't know about. But when I think about, you know, we're doing these beta tests, and yeah, they did respond really quickly to fix it. And we're in a situation now where we're kind of waiting on Microsoft and Sony to approve it or whatever. But if they kind of had got in front of it to begin with, we may not have had the problem, and they could have done like a 48-hour beta test for us over the weekend, and we would have gave them the answer. You know, flip side of that is that I'm curious how many people actually participated in the beta test. I don't know what their numbers are.
Right. That's the other part of it. Yes.
It's entirely possible this thing was implemented, and because it's a sheer volume situation where they weren't ready for it. But and that's kind of how I look at this mining change is that they did this change. We're not entirely sure of the volume of how it could have affected everything in the long run until it actually goes into effect. And we won't even know the total effects of this mining change for months to come until kind of the market settles down.
Right.
So yeah, so the one part of the market change, like I said, exactly right. We're gonna see, we're gonna see the market shift in a series of stages. We're gonna see, the first week, and then we're gonna see like 2 3 weeks, and then we're gonna see like if you have a snapshot of, this week, and then 2 weeks out, and then
I think it's
two
going to be
months
in
out.
constant flux. I think the market's going to constantly be shifting from
Well,
here
yeah,
on out.
but what we already know. So the one part of it is the supply and demand and how that's going to affect things. Now, so on the plus side, this new background system state of Holiday has now increased the total value that you can be getting. So like I said, from void opals being capped at 1.6 mil, you can get over 2 mil for void opals if you get the right system state and you have the right amount or whatever.
And you
But
want to fly far enough to get there.
yeah, but the additional part of this is a more, like, sort of ignoring the market. The second half of this, the part that I've just discussed here, it's going to permanently change. If this sticks and this is the way it's going to be going forward, it's going to permanently change and make for more dynamic markets, because like before Tweak was saying, he used to just be like, oh, look, there's low temperature diamonds, I don't care, it's not void opals, I'm just getting void opals. Now there is an incentive to diversify what you're collecting. I think we're going to see, because you don't see void opals in your painite,
Commodities market.
well, you don't see void opals in your painite hotspots, and
Also
and
true.
vice versa. So what I find interesting, because you do sometimes see low temperature diamonds in your. So you're going to see low temperature diamonds in your void opal spots. Now, I think you might see a new holy trinity arise where people say, okay, I'm going for void opals, low temperature diamonds, so like 300 avoid or whatever avoid, whatever of LTD, and then maybe a third that we are not using now that we say like, oh, we're now going to start farming that up and we're going to go with these three. Or maybe because they're core ships, they're smaller, you could just go 50-50. But for sure on the painite side, I think we're going to see multiple things pop up where people say, okay, I'm not just getting painite, I'm getting painite and this. Or we'll maybe see different builds where people are going to trade out one of their cargo racks for another collector to say, look, I can collect it faster and I'm not trying to fill up with 522 anymore, 512 plus 10 in the refinery. I'm aiming for 256 in half the time, because if I can get half the amount in half the time, like if I can keep half the amount half the time so that my tons per hour is the same, I'm effectively getting one third higher profit.
Well, another
Or
point to. Oh, go ahead.
or so they'll either go that route or they'll go the route of saying, I'm going to stay out for just as long, but I want to diversify, and I'm not just going to get painite. I'm going to get painite plus commodity B plus commodity C, and that means that you're now moving around more when you sell. You're not just going to, I'm going to jump 12 jumps, get to this spot, sell all 522. You're going to get to this jump 12 jumps away. You're going to sell 200, so all of your painite 200, and then you're going to jump 4 steps away and say, okay, now I'm going to sell all of my commodity B here, and then 3 jumps away, I'm going to sell all of my commodity C here. It's making this entire process, yes, it's slower. Yes, it's going to lower your total credits per hour, but it's making the whole thing sort of more dynamic and more like a real economy. In a real
Also
economy,
opens up more opportunity to get pirated too if you're playing in open.
that's true. And in a real economy, you're not going to if you're got a truck full of stuff and you're like, okay, I've got computers, I'm taking that to Best Buy, and then I've got toilet paper that I'm taking to Costco, and then I've got whatever. Like you're not going to one stop to drop off all the stuff. You're making multiple stops. So it's interesting.
A point I was going to try to bring up too is because we already have like the typical mining ships that people use and stuff like that. But I think another thing that's going to arise out of this too is maybe people downsizing their ships so they have that less space, but they have a little more maneuverability.
Yeah, that's
Possible.
actually something I was going to suggest too. That there's a very judging by what we're seeing here, um, it, I'd put money that it's going to be a situation where we're going to see medium. Well, two things. I kind of think that we're going to see um, uh, kind of mining become, because a lot of people kind of have a ship that can do core mining and surface mining. I think it'd be more a situation where you're just a surface miner or you're just a core miner. It won't be a situation where you're doing both.
I
And I think
agree.
I think it'll be a situation where you'll have a smaller ship, probably like 200 tons, and you won't be passing by. Like if you're a core miner, you won't be passing by anything that has a core in it. I think you'll
Right.
get the LTDs, and yeah, I
You'll be cracking all the rocks you see. Yep.
right.
And we might see with, if you were to combine, number one, the fact that this is more dynamic going on supply and demand. Number two, the holiday state. What if you found a system, you check EDDBIO or you check Inara and you say, well, 12 jumps out, there's a system that's actually paying a ridiculously high price for Alexandrite. And for once, when I see an Alexandrite core, I'm
I
not going
know,
to be
right?
throwing my controller down and yelling at
Mm-hmm.
the TV. I'm going to be hitting that up because I'm actually able to get a very good price for it.
Right.
Which also will make mining less mind numbing in my opinion, because my least favorite part of core mining is the time in between void opal rocks where you're searching for 10-15 minutes for the next void opal rock. That drives me nuts. So now if I can find this rock that's got LTDs or this rock that's got bromelite or alexandrite, I can stop at each of them and it keeps me more engaged.
Yeah. And so let me ask you this: we're all kind of in the agreement that this is probably a good change overall. Like nobody's sitting around going, "Oh, this sucks. This makes it horrible," right?
No, I think it's fine. I think it makes it more realistic, which to me is what FDev's been going for this whole time with this game. That's why we all love Elite Dangerous as opposed to No Man's Sky. It's a space simulation.
Amen, brother. Well, I think that's it, right, Kai? Am I missing anything?
That's it for my. I there was a couple other things, but I think we're going to hold them for next week because we're going over. But I do want to once again throw it out there to everyone. They're going to go through the Twitter, and obviously you've got the email and this, that, and the other. But for sure, everyone hit up tinyurl.com/loose screws podcast with no spaces. Come join the family, see what's going on. You're going to see stuff posted all the time, and you get a little shout out or something. You get some news on stuff. Just today, a very cool site was posted for people to go to explore, and you're going to get hot news fresh as it happens. And I'm done.
Alrighty. Well, that is going to bring us to story time with Old Man Ty, which is a new segment.
With Old Man Ty.
We need some music for this, don't we? We need some. We need some.
I ought to just write just like a nice little like bass groove, just
Like a 1980s jingle.
Yeah.
For sure.
Well, okay. Let me stop right here. Tweak, did you listen to last week's episode yet?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay. What did you think of story time with Old Man Ty last week? Just right now. Give me your honest opinion.
Loved it. Absolutely loved it. And it's a great opportunity for people to find something new in the galaxy to go look at. There's all kinds of things out there that all of us are not aware of. And this just brings awareness to a new thing that if I get on, I'm like, hey, I kind of want to see that for myself and didn't know it was there. And look, it's only 100 light years away. I can easily go do that. I think it's a great segment.
Well, so story time with Old Man Ty this week. We are going to cover something called Dav's Hope. Now, if you're watching the live stream right now, you already see my beautiful, beautiful vet, nothing but the rain, sitting over at Dav's Hope. And Dav's Hope has one of the more interesting stories in this game. That's right, Cody. Old Man Ty. So Dav's Hope is an abandoned settlement and it's located in Hyades Sector DR-V C2-23, and it's planet A5. And if you go to this system and you launch the surface probe, you'll quickly find the human signal labeled Dav's Hope. You can land on it. So there's a couple things here. One, there's a story, and two, this is a really good place for engineering mats. A lot of people come here for engineering mats. A lot of people don't necessarily know that there's a really well-crafted, interesting story here that could almost be its own little mini game, really. So this whole thing, the story of Dav's Hope, took place in May of 3286. Now, everybody paying attention, this is 3306, so this was 20 years ago. So the storyline goes that abandoned stations, this whole thing has been sitting here for 20 years, which is kind of crazy to think about, really. So, May 23rd, 3286, Foreman James Franklin of Mining Team 6 reported in to base saying they heard some crashing noises after they felt a quake. They lost comms to base, so they couldn't get a hold of base, though. James decided to take his team over to Shaft 48, where there was a landline and they could reach base. A little while later, they reached Shaft 48 and tried to call to base, but there was no answer. They couldn't get through. James Franklin then made the decision to evacuate Section 4, but it was too late as all the access tunnels had collapsed in the quake. back at Dav's Hope, site coordinator Lucy Minot learned of the quakes and contacted her surveys teams, and they reported to her that there were cave-ins. They also reported that Team 6 didn't report in at the shift change and are probably trapped. So Lucy reports to her corporate liaison, Nicholas Baker, for permission to shut down the mining operations and to pull the teams out. Baker refuses, citing how much money the corporation will lose by shutting down. Lucy reports to Baker of miners lost and possibly trapped, and she decides to ready a search and rescue. The next day, Baker orders her to stand down as the team is considered an acceptable loss. I can't talk. So, 3 days later, the corporation sends out an order to Lucy to shut the site down and evacuate immediately. Baker sends another order to Lucy agreeing, and also orders her to detonate explosive charges in the mine and collapse the site. Lucy responds saying there's still 20 people trapped in the mine, and she refuses to blow the charges. Baker sends a response saying, "My responsibility is to this corporation and its shareholders. There are plenty more miners to take their place, and yours for that matter. If you won't follow orders, we'll just find someone else that will." And that's the end of the story right there, because we don't quite know everything that happened. We know that the site was evacuated, and because there's no caves around it, we kind of assume that Lucy blew the charges and evacuated. It's pretty clear that the miners evacuated pretty quickly because there's equipment and parts everywhere. This is kind of one of those classic cases where corporations are more concerned with what financial things versus doing what's right. And Baker Baker's playing the typical corporate stooge. The most interesting thing about this story to me, and the way you get this story, is that there are points inside the station. If you're watching the live stream, you can see them, and you scan them just like you do anything else, and you get the story. What's creepy about Dav's Hope is that as you're driving around, there's engineering parts lying around, and you can scan this little data point over here and kind of hear the whole story. Well, this is actually a engineering one right here. But so the way the story is told is kind of told back and forth between the foreman, Lucy, and Baker. It's all just a great big email exchange. So you kind of have to kind of piece the story together. We don't really know if Lucy immediately evacuated the site when the corporation told her. We don't know if she blew the charges. We don't know if the team eventually was rescued. For all we know, they were destroyed and they're down there right now. And that's kind of what's really cool about Dav's Hope, is that there's a lot of stuff we just don't know. I got too close to my ship here. So the way that this whole thing kind of plays out with Dav's Hope is that this is also kind of one of those things where Elite Dangerous shows the way the galaxy is, in that they are really and truly all about corporations. People they're not an asset. They're just a commodity. They're expendable.
100%.
Lucy Lucy kind of plays the heroine in the sense that she's trying to do what's right for the people that work for her. But we don't really know if she rescued them or not. We know that she was threatened by corporate. We know that she, protested a few times to say, no, we're not going to do this. And then eventually we know the site was abandoned and there's no sign whatsoever of, did they actually abandon it? Did they actually leave those people behind? Did they blow the charges? We just don't really know. And it's kind of cool to think about the fact that there could be, bodies of guys buried beneath all this.
Yeah, there is so much great lore hidden in this game if you want to go find it.
Yeah.
So much of it.
So to me, this whole story, basically, I think you're describing the Weyland-Yutani Corp from the movie Aliens. They're literally
Aliens, yep.
they've got a spreadsheet out and they're looking at it and going, yeah, it's going to cost this much to rescue these guys. They're down there. Hey, just cover up the thing. Let's get out of here.
Yep. And if you're watching the live stream right now, I'm going through the process to collect everything, because this is a really good place for level 3 and 4 manufactured mats. In fact, this was. Go ahead.
And you also get data from the beacon as well.
Yeah,
but yeah.
You beat me to it there. So the other really cool thing about this place is the way this was the very first time that I can remember that I felt a sense of scale. And driving around in your SRV, well, first of all, flying over it in your ship, even if it's just a Sidewinder. Flying just over or flying over it in a ship, you get a sense of scale just from the size of the buildings. But when you're driving around in your SRV and you kind of pull up to like this building right here that I just pulled up to, this is effectively someone's house, or this is a research station, or this is a place where they process minerals or whatever. And then you kind of get the feeling that this is like you get a sense of scale that you just don't get anywhere else in the game flying around in space. And when you land your ship beside the station, you kind of are beside the settlement, and you see how big it is, and you see how massive it is. And like I'm in my vet right now, and I'm actually going to recall my vet. I'll give you guys an idea here. Just for measurement. Like I said, this is someone's house. This is someone's place that they go to work in. This is someone's whatever. We don't even know what some of these buildings actually are. But this was a whole operation. They talked about Mining Team 6 had 20 people in it. So you got to think if there were only 6 teams, that by itself is there's 120 people. So 120 people were here. At least. And we don't know if they had families here. We don't know if there were more teams than just 6. We don't really know. The other thing we don't really know is we don't really know what corporation this was. I spent some time looking around to try to figure it out, and I can't find anywhere where they list the corporation that Dav's Hope is attached to. And the thought across my mind, maybe they just buried it. Like, I don't know if FDev buried it or if it's more of a situation where the corporation kind of buried it.
I mean, it based on their actions, the situation is like, this is a liability, this is a cost, we're not willing to whatever. Leave. I'm sure it's take all the records, we're going to delete the stuff, and no one's ever going to find this rock floating out in space.
Yeah.
These guys
burn
are
it,
done.
and it never happened. That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can kind of see my vet here, and then you see the SRV, and you can see the buildings, and this gives you a very good sense of scale. And this is when I first pulled up to Dav's Hope and saw the sheer size of things, and it really gave me, because I pulled up in an Anaconda the very first time. That really gave me a very good sense of scale for everything, and it really kind of blew my mind. So if you haven't been here, you should come here to get an idea, because it's, number one, you should come here for the mats, because everybody needs mats. Number two, you should come here for the story and for the sense of scale. So on story time this week, come out to Dav's Hope, collect some mats, and get yourself a screenshot in front of what I'm looking at right here, which is the little archway where you scan the data beacon, and underneath it, it says Dav's Hope. And that's
Another
what
thing
you're.
to look,
That's
one other
what.
thing to
But
look
what
forward to because you're here. I know we all have our gripes and stuff about space legs and blah blah blah, but it's just like, okay, you get the sense of scale of driving around this in an SRV and thinking about how many people are actually here. Well, imagine what it's going to be like when you can actually if you can actually walk around Dav's Hope
and get into the buildings and open it
That's
up
what I
and
was going to say.
see.
Another thing too is potentially enter the buildings.
What if
Yep,
you go in
that
there
would
and
be
you
amazing.
open up a desk drawer and you find a guy's a note written to his wife, okay, I'm gonna go
Ooh,
down into the mines.
Admiral
And
Door.
Mm-hmm.
yeah, man,
Just be
it's
careful though if you go to Dav's Hope because it is a known ganker spot. So
Yeah, yeah,
always keep your head on a swivel.
yeah.
so when you go ahead.
I'm in private group right now specifically because I have been here plenty of times in open though, but I didn't want to get blown up on live stream because I
You
don't
don't
want
want
to
to
be the
get
guy.
stream sniped.
Yeah, I don't want to get the guy. I don't want to be the guy that gets blown up on live stream. So, but
So I've been to Dab's Hope many times in open, and I have not had problems with gankers. I have multiple times shown up and met somebody down there, or I'm doing my loop, and when I'm doing it, someone rolls up in their SRV and they're like, "Hey," and I say, "Hey, Commander, blah blah blah. I'm gonna jump to private group and let you have the spot. It's totally cool. '07 Commanders, you do a nice little salute." It's nice when I like living my life in open. I like
Yeah, yep.
seeing
I play
people out there.
exclusively in open.
Yeah, and it's just one of those situations where it makes for fun. But I will tell you, with the resource gathering sites, that's one of the few times I will jump into solo or to private group, just
Board flipping.
because if I show up and there's somebody else there, I'm not trying to hassle them, I'm not trying to compete with them for the resources. I'll just be like,
Well,
all right, have a good
to
one, I'm
do
going to go into this
to
other
do the
place.
mats the right way at Dab's Hope, what you really need to do though is you need to go around, collect them all. You drive your little loop around, collect them, and then you board flip and you go from
yeah,
open to solo, and then you go around, you collect them all again, and then you board flip again and you collect them all again.
So you don't even need to board flip and go. You don't need to change modes for that. I do it. I've done it all the time where I'll go in open, and then if I come across people, I'll switch to solo, and then I'll just do 10 or 12 laps all in solo. And for those just watching, what you're seeing is Ty is going through all of the spots, because when you first come here, what you want to do is download all of the datas to unlock, because it tells you A, the story, which is cool, but B, it also fully unlocks and populates the place so that when you come here from now on, you'll see Dab's Hope will pop right up and you can come right down to it. And then every time from now on, when you do your loop, you drive through the loop around the town. You will collect 10 manufacturing mats. Um, and then at the end of the loop or the beginning, whatever is your preference, you want to hit the orange cone that's right by the sign that says Dav's Hope, the little finish line where everyone should be taking their pictures for hashtag story time. You want to hit that with your data sensor so that you can collect the data mat, which is where Ty is going right now.
which I actually, when I did it, I got classified scan data banks. So
Not too shabby.
yeah, not too shabby. But that is story time with Ty this week. Again, I really like Dav's Hope. I spent a fair amount of time here. It gets, if you get to where you're bored of it, like put on a Netflix and just do the lap. I am, for whatever reason, having a really hard time finding point number 5 right now. Apparently, I've scanned all these. I don't know why I'm having a problem having find point number 5, but you'll find it because you people are smart and I am not. But I don't know why I'm having a problem finding it right now. I went and looked them all up.
Look, it's the only one that's still the square behind you. There you go.
No,
That
I
one.
just scanned it.
That's weird.
Yeah, I know. Oh no, I already got it. So 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I got them all now. Okay, cool.
Beauty.
Quick note: side effect of working so much BGS, it's made Dav's Hope obsolete for me.
Yeah.
Because you're always getting
So
those. Yeah.
I'm on the missions. I'm constantly getting grade 5 biotech conductors or exquisite focus crystals, which I can then use to trade down. So I'm almost always full on those. But I also put a collector limpet on my vet. So anytime I do a assassination mission, I kill the pirate and I collect his mats. Or at the end of a CZ, I send my limpets out and I collect those mats. And after a month or two of just normal gameplay BGS, I'm full on most of my manufactured mats. I just
Yeah.
have to go fill up on the raw. And scan every ship. Every ship you see in space, scan it, and you'll find yourself full on the data a lot too.
You really
For
will.
sure. For sure.
But I think that's going to conclude story time with Old Man Ty. But I do want to do this one. If you're watching live stream, I want to do this one thing real quick, just kind of show everybody. Because again, this place is great for scale. And I am stuck on something apparently. Great, good job. There we go. Here's my landing gear that was stuck. Little tip: if you're ever stuck, work your landing gear a few times. You always get unstuck. So I would just, and this is really bad for podcasts, but I'm gonna do it real quick for
All right, so
live
what Ty's
stream.
doing is he's essentially just turning around and kind of going back to right where he was driving around. And I mean, I remember when he landed here, I was like, this place is like really tiny. What the hell? But then he gets out in the SRV and you're like, oh.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not so small anymore.
Yeah, it gives a really good sense of scale. And
So, yeah, what you notice is the little settlement here is not tiny. It's just his ship is that massive.
Yeah.
yeah,
His ship is basically a floating. It's a floating like 2 football fields. It's you're talking about almost an aircraft carrier just kind of hanging out.
You got your vet out there. It's a mini Star Destroyer, right?
That it is.
Yeah. All right, so that's it for that, and we are going to be moving on to emails this week. And actually, that's not entirely true because we're actually not doing an email from this week. We're doing an email from, I believe, 2 weeks ago now, and we're going to be talking about DJ Wiley's email.
Shout out to Wiley.
So he'd send us a really well worded, really well thought out email, and I thought about getting him on the show to talk about it, but the problem is that he's, one of these Europeans, and because he's one of these Europeans, he has like really
Schedule's
weird.
always different.
Yeah, I mean, clearly the Earth is flat, and if he would just admit that, then we wouldn't have to worry about time zones and stuff. So, but number one, I appreciate you sending this in, but there's like 13 things here I'm going to go over real quick. So what he's talking about here is straight up balance / adjustments to the game itself. And let me just land my ship real quick so I don't crash. All right, so I'm gonna move this over here so I can actually read the damn thing. All right, so number one, balance credit earning. Mining is by far the most profitable activity. Exploration got a bit of a buff with the FSS changes last December, and I don't think it's too far off what needs to be done. But most other activities such as trading, smuggling, missions, and combat in general pay out far too little. You said on a recent show that other activities should be increased without nerfing them. I wholeheartedly agree with this. I think we're at a point now where with mining it's balanced, but I think overall combat needs some sort of boost. I still feel like, I know there's combat missions that pay pretty well. They don't pay in the ballpark as well as other things, and you could argue that bounty hunting is the most dangerous. What I would honestly like to see them do with bounty hunting, I would like it to make it to where you, if you're after someone, when you destroy their ship, they have ejected. If you take the time to collect their escape pod and then you go turn it in at the station where the bounty was valuable, well, now all of a sudden you get far more money, and that would be really that. I mean, they already have the tech in the game to do this because you can pick up escape pods every now and then. I think that'd be a great way to change it. Basically leave the amount of money you get right now from uh, bounty hunting alone, but make it to where you can collect their escape pod and then go turn it in. I think that would be a really cool way to change it. What
It
do
would
y'all
definitely
think?
be interesting. I do a lot of PvE combat personally, and as long as I'm doing massacre missions, I'm making good money because I can get 25, 30, 40, 50 million credit missions to do in a wing. But yeah, bounty hunting, I mean, if you kill an elite vet or anaconda or something, you might get 250,000 credits. Even a capital ship in a high intensity conflict zone pays out 500,000 credits.
Yeah,
So you could definitely get a little more out of that stuff, I think.
yeah. Kai, what you think, man?
Yeah, I mean that sounds great. I like the idea. So what I like the idea is having like some sort of options and some dynamic interactions. So I like the idea of like you said, you scoop up a capsule, and then maybe there's a situation where you have some choices of you take that capsule and you can sell it back for ransom to whatever faction they come from, or you can sell it as intel to the faction that that you're doing the mission for. I also like the idea of uh, when you sort of explode a pirate ship or whatever, there should be I feel like there should
Goods
be
and
some
materials
loots.
and such.
Yes,
Yep.
there should be
Yep.
some loot, some valuables that drop. So you could go a couple ways with it. You could say he's got cargo that drops, but you could also say that maybe there's a module or some way that you now have a data core that you can like scan his data core, and maybe he has a some sort of a map to a location where his hideout was, where you have you can go there, get out in your SRV, and find some loot, or like there's all kinds of different ways that you can do that. I understand that a lot of these would require a significant amount of more work. So yeah, as a short-term interim fix, I like the idea of cargo drops, or uh, or the escape pod drops, and you can just turn that into for easy money.
Yeah,
There's other story ideas and hooks that they could use with that though going forward in future content expansions.
Draven, else what you think, bud?
I mean, Kai pretty much covered it all. It was very well worded and probably better than what I could have said it.
All right, number 2 here. Have a reason to visit non-scoopable stars when out of the black, such as red dwarfs. Everyone ignores them when exploring and sets their map to exclude them. They basically only have icy bodies and not much else of interest. Maybe have some sort of bio-geosites or stellar phenomena that can only be found there. It would be interesting to see the galaxy explored percentage excluding these systems. So I'm gonna say I, I didn't I do not plot that way, specifically because when I was well, I say not every single time, but the last time I was out exploring, I was looking for the types of planets I had never seen or had never discovered before, and I wanted to have my name on those planets and those and be able to be the first surface map and stuff. So I was targeting stars that I wasn't used to. I was targeting black holes and stuff that I wasn't necessarily used to. So uh, I also kind of feel like that this is something that uh, that FDev kind of dipped their toe in a little bit with the Lagrange clouds and the uh, uh, life forms in them, and I would like to have seen them do a little more. Dravenos, what you think, bud?
I mean, to his point, like, because like, yeah, you had that mission goal and you went out with a bigger ship, but I was exploring. I think it was no, the BAM, not the Ass Explorer, but it left me as soon as I was trying to say it.
Diamondback Explorer.
Yeah.
AUVX.
Diamondback Explorer, good God. But like that's a pretty small tank, so it's just like if I'm taking like a long jump, I don't want to jump to like a red dwarf star or anything like that because it's like, well, that one jump could cause me to have to call the fuel rats, and I don't want to do that.
Yeah. What you think, Kai?
I love it, man. I like the idea of different interactions, and we may see that coming up in the future with, maybe those stars are scoopable for carriers. Maybe carriers run on a different type of thing where you can't. What if you can't scoop carrier, like you can scoop carriers, but only on the stars that are non-scoopable to regular ships. That could add some variation there. The other thing that has been really playing in my mind for a good chunk of today while I was on the road, I thought, man, I would like to see them do something interesting and meaningful with the asteroid fields. There's so many times where you see the system map, and right by the main star there's like two sort of asteroid fields that no one ever goes to, and then everybody just goes to the rings around the ring planets. What if either you could do stuff with gas mining on gas giants, or you could do stuff with a special kind of scoop on the other types of stars. What if we were to find out that you know Thargoids or uh, Guardian Tech AI, whatever? What if they interact with different stars than we do because they have a different type of technology? There's tons to do with those. Yeah, for sure. It's interesting.
Tweak, do you have anything on this one?
No, I think it's all pretty much been said. That, and I'm not a big explorer, but
Yeah.
anytime there's a chance for new content or new styles of gameplay because of something, I think it's a positive.
So, number 3 here. White dwarves are pointless. 50% boost versus 300% boost for neutrons, plus they're more dangerous. I actually have a YouTube video where I crashed into one because I was not paying attention. Um, at the moment, people just avoid them. I was just buffing them to around 150, 200. Neutrons will still be superior, but there will at least be a reason to use white dwarves. I'm still not okay. So when you fuel scoop from a star and you're trying to boost off of it, what you're well, first of all, when you fuel scoop from a star, what you're actually gathering is hydrogen. Um, at least I think that's what you're gathering is hydrogen, and because that's effectively what the fusion reactors in our ships use, and I think I saw that actually in the module description of the power plant. But I'm completely wrong because one of them that might have been on the ship on the station version. I can't remember now. Anyway, um, so I think that they base that upon the amount of hydrogen that the star is emitting, but I'm not entirely sure that white dwarfs are emitting or have a composition, rather not necessarily emitting, have a composition that is less hydrogen that would account for that. Um, in my mind, like we don't quite have a good uh, lore scientific explanation for how the FSD works. So I think that I don't know about the way they boost here, but I would rather have a more comprehensive explanation for how the FSD actually functions, like the science behind the FSD. Like a good example is like with Star Trek, they have a lore explanation for the warp drive, which is based upon a real scientific theory that has yet to be proven. But it's plausible. Mathematically it's been proven, but it's not been proved. Like we don't have ships that can travel at warp speed, but it is plausible. Um, I would like to see the Elite Dangerous lore explanation for how FSD works and for how uh, fuel scooping works and how you can boost and all that. Uh, what you think on this? What's this one, Draven? Anything?
I mean, I've never used them, but I didn't even realize that it was that big of a difference. Like, holy crap!
Yeah, it's a pretty big deal. What you think there, Kai?
So this one's an interesting one because it came by accident. So when they were doing it, the white dwarfs were supposed to be 50% and the neutron was supposed to be 30%. But when they put it in on the beta test and they put it out there for folks, somebody literally fat fingered it, and instead of putting 30, they put 300. And when they saw the mistake, they were like, "Oh, guys, we screwed that up. We're going to go ahead and change that back to 30." And it was a tidal wave of salt of everyone going, "No, you have to leave it at 300. We like it at 300." So they were kind of like, "Well, shit, I guess everybody wants this. We'll give it to them." That's why there's this weird disparity between the two, where one is, you know, 50% and one is 300, literally 6 times as much. That was not an intended consequence, and as a result it makes the interplay between the two of them kind of seem unbalanced.
Yeah,
I feel like I like it. I think it's interesting. You don't need it. You don't need it. You don't need neutron boosting. You don't need white dwarf boosting.
you shut
But
your damn mouth.
I hey, let me finish.
Never used it.
You don't need it. You can go without it. But
Yeah,
I like that it offers just neat flavors of different ways to do things. I don't really care on the numbers. If one of them is 300% and if they were to change the other one to 500% or if they were
yeah,
to leave it at 50, it's just new flavors. It doesn't really change my life too much one way or the other. They're still going to make sure the things that you can get to. The things that you can't get to because they don't want you to get to, if you up it from 50% to 500%, they're just going to lock more stuff so that you can't get where they don't want you to go. This is not a huge difference to me. I like the flavor that it has already, and if you wanted to play with it a little bit because people were just wanting, say, well, we don't like that one's 50%, one's 300. We want them to be, you know, 200 and 300, or 300 each, or 300 and 400. What, like, whatever, knock yourself out. I think it's cool.
see, for me, like I said, I really wish that if we had a better explanation of how, like, a better lore explanation for how the whole system worked. I think that we
I
would.
would also just add that I don't think every star has to have a purpose like that either. Sometimes a star is just a star and there's nothing we can do with it. So I
Yeah,
don't always need them to be for boosting and everything else.
Yeah, for
yeah,
sure. Some of the most interactive, interesting stars I have is when you jump across. And so for newer players, you can scoop off of KGB foam. So if it says it's a star type K, star type G, star type B, F,
right, right,
O,
right,
A,
right.
or M. KGB foam is the easy way to remember. You can always scoop. If it's not KGB foam, those huge, massive ones that you see out in the Hades sector, where it's like the big, big red ones that are not, I forget which type they are, but they're not any of the scoopable. They're massive. You get within, if you even look at one, you're overheating. God forbid if you dream about one in a mamba, you just explode. Like those stars, they have no good use for me. They have no good purpose for me, but they are definitely meaningful interaction because as soon as I jump into one, you see me like
Scurrying to
literally.
your
I'm
controls,
Yeah,
yes.
I'm like a dog. I'm like a dog on the carpet, like scooting back because it's like, holy shit, this is bad news. Danger, Will Robinson. So like, I like that this is a sort of a accurate representation of the universe. And the fact of the matter is in our universe and in our galaxy, there are many bodies, whether they're moons or stars or asteroids, that we can interact with in the future once we get to this point in technology and we can do things with. And there's going to be many others that don't give a damn about us and are there to crush us like bugs if we get too close to them. And that's meaningful as well. And in the other way of like, hey, avoid this.
Yeah,
So I think it's cool as it is, but anything that they can do to add more interactions, whether it's positive or negatives. I'd like to see more good things to do, and I'd like to see more dangerous things to avoid. I dig it all.
So I'm actually going to roll number 4 and number 5 kind of together real quick. And number 4, or does anybody bother with subsurface deposits or displacement missiles? Seems like there's currently no real point in
Nope.
them. They're an interesting idea, which is a shame. Maybe there should be some materials that can only be mined via subsurface deposits. And although I love them, overlapping painite and LTD hotspots make the effort involved in core mining feel not worthwhile. You can get similar or better credits per hour with less effort laser mining overlapping hotspots. I don't think this is right. Core mining should be on top. I don't know if either mining should necessarily be on top, but I
And
do
I think they're all going to change now too.
Yeah,
exactly.
I think we're definitely seeing. So I think they've already gotten to his point number 5 as far as the, yeah, it's definitely going to be changing. Core mining will be on top. I disagree, Ty, with when you said neither should be on top. I feel that core mining should definitely be on top because of the two, core mining takes much more effort. As someone who, in literally in the month of December, I farmed up 25 billion credits while watching Babylon 5 on my second screen in Paynite. Yeah, it takes no effort at all. I had to,
Yeah.
now when I was void opal mining, which I have done as well. I had to be watching like a hawk. I could not be really meaningfully watching a show. I would play a podcast, but I could not watch a show on the second screen. So I think core mining should for sure be on top of it because it takes more work. And I think that after the changes that we've just seen put into effect, I think you will see core mining be on top.
Well, what I mean by that is that so if you're only core mining, are you doing any of the subsurface missile launches, or are we talking about just seismic charges?
Seismic charges usually. Yep.
Yeah, I mean, so you seismic charge to crack the rock, and then you abrasion blast to drop
Right,
off the
right.
the segments that are
But
there. Yeah.
but what I'm saying though is like, have you ever seen some of those rocks where like there's a subsurface on it and there's a core? Do you ever dig the subsurface?
I've done that. I tested it myself just to actually see,
Mm-hmm.
because what I'd heard was that's not worth your effort and time. And when I tested it, and when I say I tested it, I mean I tested it on a dozen different rocks. I found that the assessment of very astute and intelligent people was accurate. It was not worth my time. It just did not yield enough that to me it made it meaningful. It was quicker and better to keep going. If I found myself in a spot where like I was just hard up, or I was like close to reaching the top, end. Like when you've got that Python that you literally have a full, you have a full cargo hold, and you're trying to squeeze out that last one or two opals to throw in your refinery. Yeah, okay, but otherwise, it's not worth the effort.
Yeah.
Well, so let me clarify what I mean though. Okay. So I'm thinking if you're surface mining, you're you're also using the subsurface missiles to dig out the upper to dig those out. And if you're core mining, you're only splitting it. And I'm kind of thinking that if in order to make the subsurface missiles valuable, you make it to where there's more in them, and you could apply that toward like a surface mining ship, and then that way you could actually balance the two out, because then you make surface mining a lot more interesting.
Hmm.
And that's kind of what I was getting at.
Yeah.
But without a doubt, the subsurface missiles, the missiles that drill down into the cracks and whatnot, that's something I would really like for them to do more of. That I don't feel like they do enough with. But moving forward, and we may have to split this whole email up here because this is we are running
Let's
really
just
long here.
let's just push through and get it all knocked out.
All right, so balance elite status. Since the buff exploration ain't coming mining, both exploration and trade elite seem a little too easy to achieve in comparison to combat, which is way more difficult. It feels like cheating to use mining income for trade elite. I don't have a problem with using mining for trade elite. as someone who got their elite status 3 years after he started playing the game in exploration. I will come, and then I'm playing a game right. I'm doing a podcast right now with a guy who started like 4 months ago and is elite. Yeah, there's some imbalancing there. There's some definite imbalances there.
So I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
So here's what I think. Frontier is in a place where they want us to have money. They want us to get more money by doing different things because they want us to buy the ships, and they want us to, because when you buy the ships, then you can buy the skins for the ships, and the skins, the paint jobs and whatnot, they sell for actual cash, which is how they make money, which is how they keep their kids in private school and their wives happy, and everyone gets to make money, and they get to do more stuff with the game. So I get 100% why you add stuff like you up the amount of money that you get from mining. I get 100% why you up the amount of money you get for exploration. They want people to have the money to play with all of the toys that they work so hard to create. So I'm 100% in favor of that. But what you can do, you can still flood us with money so we can play with all the toys, but you can, and this is kind of scary, but hear me out. You can give you all the money, but move the goalpost to say that now to get trading elite, it takes more money because money is easier to get. Now to get exploration elite, it takes more money because money is easier to get. I am double elite. I am nowhere near elite on combat, and I'm about to go through it. But I agree with the sentiment of balancing the status. I don't think that you balance the status by making combat easier. I think you balance the status by making elite and the other two harder. And I'm sure that there are some people that would not be happy with that, but honestly, like it just gives you more things to do and more time to spend. That's it.
Well, Draven, that's what you think, man.
I mean, for me, it's one of those things where it's just like since they kind of like gave a buff to both the exploration and the trading, they should do something for combat to where it's like they were talking about on live radio, and one of the guys was going out and he was starting to kill it, and he was going for his combat, and he ran the numbers on how many Thargoids he would have to kill to get elite from where he was at, and it was like some ridiculous number. Because we all know that Thargoids are like the best way to get combat elite, but it's just
They are,
why
but I don't think they're significantly better. I can go up. I'm still not elite in combat, and I do combat all the time. It is definitely the hardest to get elite in. I'm 80%, whatever the last rank before elite in exploration is, and I don't explore at all.
So the
I'm
reason
65% deadly, and it's so slow because now that I'm deadly ranked, it only counts if I kill deadly or elite
deadlies are
ships.
above. Yep.
and that's why Thargoids are the best because all of the Thargoid ships count as elite. So from deadly to go from deadly to elite, it takes 16 kills of elites to get 1%. So
Right.
if you're at deadly
It is a grind.
one, you're talking about 99 times 16 kills of elites to get to deadly 100, which throws you into elite. And when you're doing that in other areas, and one out of every 8 or 9 ships you come across is elite, that means you're talking about 16 times 99 times 9, as opposed to when you're doing it just off of the Thargoids, it's 16 times 99. It's literally 9 times faster in that scenario to just do it farming the Thargoids.
Well, I think I'm the only one here who is combat elite, and I got that mostly by farming Thargoids. And I can tell you right now, number one, um, so it is not, it's a little misleading. It is not a killing Thargoid scouts is 16 to 1%. If you work in an interceptor or two, it's a flat out one sometimes 1.5%. So if you can kill some of their higher tier things or be a part of their kills, you get more toward that. Now, I'm kind of in the mindset. I think what they need to do is make it to where elite trading and elite CQC and elite exploration go away. Like you can still hit a what's the right word? You can get a license for Jameson and Founders World by getting to a certain by turning in a certain amount of trade or a certain amount of exploration data to where you can get to where you can get in there because Jameson's really cool. But getting that elite title for combat, that that means that you really worked hard to get it, and I don't want them to make that easier. And I don't it that getting combat elite was like one of my proudest moments in video gaming, and I used to do tournaments and stuff, and actually won some tournaments in some FPS tournaments way back in the day. And that was getting that was one of my proudest moments because I worked so hard to get it, and it took me 4.5 years. I only got it like 6-8 months ago, and I'm so proud of that. And I don't want it to be diminished at all. I don't want them to. Well, here's a cheap way to get combat elite. Now everybody has it. Well, then why the fuck did I spend so much time and effort to do it? I don't want it to be cheapened.
So that
So
way old man Ty can have his back in my day.
So Ty, if you don't want combat to be cheapened, and I 100% agree with you, and I still have the hill to climb, but I still agree with you. I don't want it to be cheapened either. Do you feel that the other two should be left alone, or do you feel that exploration and trade should be made a little bit more difficult to sort of even it out?
So I mean, like I said, I never liked Explore Elite or Trade Elite. The term Elite to me means only combat. I think that you should be able to reach. I think that like Explorer, Pioneer should be their max, and then Trader, Tycoon should be the max. There should not be an Elite on there.
But that triple elite prestige just sounds so good.
Oh
Yeah, I
yeah.
feel like triple elite is the real elite.
Well, to me it is.
Yeah, no, 100%. But I mean, so they're not going to get rid of they're not going to get rid of the elite status in trade and exploration.
No, they're
They're
not.
there.
They're
They're
not.
they're tied to stickers. People have the little stickers. If you take it away, you're gonna it's just
Yeah.
never going to happen. So again, I put it to you, Ty. Do you want them to leave the other two alone, or do you want them to make the other two a little harder so that they are balanced out to his point?
So I'm kind of in the mindset that I think that exploration. Okay, I don't. Right now, those goals are based upon strictly turning in an X amount number of credits. Okay, and I believe it's like 500 million for exploration data and 950 million for trading, but I might have those numbers a little wrong. What would be cool is if like there were certain goals you had to hit for getting elite in exploration and trade. Like you had to go explore, you had to go find all the different types of stars and all the different types of planets. You had to go find, and you don't necessarily have to have your name on them, but you gotta have you have to have scanned all the different types. You have to have surface mapped X amount of planets. You have to have,
And while we're at it, why don't you say you have to have been to Beagle Point?
well, okay, that wouldn't be fair to me because I've actually never been to Beagle Point.
I,
So,
I can't disagree with what you're saying. All I would say is doing it that way, though, Elite Dangerous is borderline too grindy for a lot of people as it is,
that's
and
true.
that would make it even worse.
That's true. And
Mm-hmm.
for the trade thing, I think the trade thing's fine because what we're talking about is basically a billion credits. Um, I do think a situation where you're just selling, uh, maybe, what I think it kind of should be is more of a situation where it's a it's a trade for like you can't just go sell, you know, effectively with a cutter. You can't just so think about it like this with a cutter before the mining change. You could sell six, is it 6 loads, 8 loads, eight. I think it's 8 or 9 loads of painite in your trade elite. So that's effectively like 3 days, 3 4 days, and that's not right. Maybe if you maybe you should have to diversify a little bit to where you have to do a little. You can only do so much mining that will go toward your trade elite. Only so much trading that will go toward your trade elite. Make it a little bit more diversive somehow. I don't quite know how you do that off the top of my head, but I think it would be. I think it'd be a lot more better.
Yeah. I like that. I like the idea. So I'm a person who got to trade elite in like
Probably two
on
weeks.
oh no, I got to trade elite on I think my second day playing the game.
Jesus.
And yeah, and I mean I mean Exegius put out a thing like a challenge and he got to trade elite. Now he's obviously a far better player than I am, and I was going based off of a guide and he was going based off of experience, and he got it in 12 hours, and then the Harry Potter got it in 8 hours, and then somebody beat him. This guy, I forget his name, but he got it in like 7 hours and 2 minutes, which is like the record for the fastest that we know of anyone's got it. And when I say they got it in that time, these guys had a stream going, a recording going through the whole thing. Like it's
Yeah.
legit. You saw every step of the way. The guy got it in 7 hours and 2 minutes. That I believe is too fast. And I think that again, I like the idea of them throwing more money at us so that we can play with all the toys. But if they move it back to say, hey, now elite with inflation to get trade elite, it's way harder. So it should be that it takes more. I like what you said about needing to get some stars or this that and the other. It doesn't. Maybe you could release a little of those restrictions and say, okay, you have to get at least this many stars and have traveled at least this many light years from Seoul and the data amount, because as it stands now, if you just mindlessly do road to riches, you can stay in the bubble and hit exploration elite, which is a little weird to me.
It's a little dirty. Little feels a little dirty. You know.
Yeah,
That's my whole thing. Um, I think I think that's actually where we're going to call it for the night, gentlemen, because we're about halfway through his email, and I do have a couple of breaking news announcements I want to mention real quick. Okay. So,
exciting.
no, these aren't necessarily elite things, but these are things I'm interested in, and I'm going to talk. This is my show, so I'm going to talk about them. So, number one, Cyberpunk 2077 has officially been pushed to September of this year, which doesn't bother me at all. CD Projekt Red can have another year, as far as I'm concerned, to work on it. But the big thing that I'm super excited about, Larian released a little teaser video today for Baldur's Gate 3 and said something like, "Things are, um, things are, we're working on things, and we're gonna see more February 27th." And I'm like a little kid in a little kid in a candy store, just dee dee dee, just so happy, so happy. um, Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 has a very special place in my heart. So for Baldur's Gate 3, for a company like Larian to have it, I am so excited for this. It I mean, I am more excited for this than I am. I could be more excited for this than I am for Fleet Carriers. I hate to say it, because it's such a game that so Baldur's Gate 3 was the very first RPG I played on the computer. Or Baldur's Gate 1 was the very first RPG I ever played on the computer. So it has a very special place in my heart. And I remember sitting there playing, and I'm thinking to myself, oh my god, this is just like the tabletop that I could play with my friends. And it was so amazing. And I cannot wait to see what they can do with Baldur's Gate 3. But yeah, yeah. So anyway, that's all I'll say about that.
Yeah,
Kind
I'm
of
super
along the same
excited.
lines, BioWare yesterday put out a very cryptic tweet uh, in regards to Mass Effect. It just kind of gave the intro to Mass Effect 1, and that's all it said. No idea why they put it out there or what that means, but it's got everybody in
Yeah.
the community talking.
Yeah, I saw that. All I could think of was you're gonna fuck it up again.
I'm actually hoping for a remaster of the trilogy.
I predict that we'll get a remaster pretty soon, and I'll probably buy that. And I think that's exciting. That being said, Andromeda was such an abysmal
It was
pile of
just
mess.
Andromeda would have been good. It would have been okay if it wasn't called Mass Effect. But with the bar set by the trilogy, it was such a letdown.
I don't know. I mean, that game was just bad. But anyway, does anybody have anything else? Let me say this real
I,
quick. Our commander DJ Wiley, we will finish up your email next week, sir.
oh, for sure, we're gonna get to that because
Yeah,
there's good stuff in there.
there's great stuff
Um,
in there. So yeah.
so when you ask if anybody has anything else, number one, I want to say thank you so much to Twig for making this. I think the best episode yet, and you for sure we're gonna do the Twitter call outs. You got to include your Twitter in there for that so people can reach out to you. Um, and I want to say thank you to everybody in the community for all the stuff that's happened this week. It's been a very very cool week. And Ty, do you want to maybe give any teasers for stuff that's coming up soon?
Well, let's see here. Let me do this real quick. Let me get the calendar pulled up because we have. I will just hit the high notes real quick. Not that we have really low notes, just some people that we are scheduled further out. So let's see here. Saturday, I am talking with Edelweiss. I'm gonna screw up his name. I just know it. Edelweiss from Lave Radio. Uh,
Edelweiss.
Edelweiss. God, dog. Um, Sunday, we are sitting out with Astro from Down to Earth Astronomy. And Thursday, Commander Exigeous mentioned he's going to join us live, so that'll be super interesting.
Very excited for that.
Yeah, Exegius is gonna fourth chair it, so it'll be a full house.
Yeah, and then next Sunday, sitting down and talking with Watherspoon, and got a couple of things on the horizon I'm not quite ready to talk about yet, but these are all things that are confirmed for now. So, um, but I think. Oh, let me figure out what I was doing here. I was plotting my way home, so I was doing. But I think that's going to wrap it up for this week's show. Dravenos. Oh, let me just say this real quick. Tweaked. I appreciate you joining us this evening. Um, the information you give us.
Very happy to do it, guys. I really appreciate you having me on.
Do you
Yeah,
have
yeah, dude. Thank you.
Do you have any shout outs for your squadron you wanna pass on?
Well, if anybody wants to get a hold of me, you can get me on Twitter at Tweet74, Discord, the same name at Tweet74. And if you're on Xbox and you're looking for a active, fun squadron, look us up, Leviathan Scout Regiment.
And one other thing I will say is that uh, I'm looking forward to trying to do a little bit more, trying to be a little smarter with where I sell things and sell data, like exploration data, because now I'm aware that that's actually going to affect a lot more than what I originally thought it was. So I'm gonna have to figure me out a faction and stuff to do that with. So anyway, I think that's gonna do it for the show. Um, you can always reach it if you guys have any questions. If you guys have any questions for myself or even for Tweaked, I can pass them along to him. You can always email the show at loosescrewsquestions@gmail. I am on Twitter at Tyrvol Tyrvol. Our Twitter is
At Loose Cruise ED.
thank God.
You could also message us there or message us within the Discord, and you can find me at Dravenos13. That is Dravenos13.
And you guys want to watch the show live? We just do it every Thursday on YouTube. You can just search for Loose Screws ED or follow the link in the Discord. And I think that's it. Kai, you got anything else, Bubby? Any last words?
Wow, you talked me into activating my Twitter and then don't give it out. I'm gonna cry myself to sleep.
What's your
If
Twitter,
any
man? I can't remember your
if
damn
anybody
Twitter.
wants to Twitter me at Kai19103, I will probably get back to you sometime within the next decade. Uh, but for me, if you want to talk to me, get on the Discord. That's where you'll see me. I love you
This man
guys.
is always in there.
Yeah. All right, guys. Dravenus, do your thing.
Well, guys, it's been a good episode, and don't fly without a rebuy.
Thanks, guys. We'll see y'all next time.
Bye.